Chapter 1336. Find Nai Tsongyang residence. Jiyu Yundong frowned. Was it the Yang residence that she knew? Master Yang Yihai's residence? Jiyu Yundong asked for confirmation. Mrs. Chen immediately puffed out her chest and raised her eyebrows. That's right. In Mrs. Yang's maid. Our Yang residence is so big. Would we swallow your money? Jiyu Yundong narrowed her eyes and felt that something was amiss. She looked at Mother Chen and then at the couple. In the end, she said, it's such a big sum of money. It's best to consider it carefully. If you don't see the deed clearly, you'll regret it in the future. With that, she turned around and left with Tong Shuidao. Mrs. Chen was so angry at Jiyu Yundong's last sentence that she fell backward. She chased after her for a few steps and pointed at her back with a trembling finger as she scolded, "Where did you come from to find trouble? Little b****, don't leave if you have the ability. Don't let me see you next time, or I'll teach you a lesson." After cursing for a while, Mother Chen spat fiercely and turned to look at the couple again. Don't listen to her. She just can't bear to see our shop rented out. She must have been sent by our Yang family to sow discord. Come, let's talk about the lease first. However, just as Mother Chen finished speaking, the couple looked at each other and said with a dry smile, "Mother Chen, look, your rent is indeed a little expensive. We don't have that much money on hand. How about this? Well, go back and raise the money first and come back another day?" They thought about it just now and felt that the girl was right. Mother Chen only had the key. Whenever at the mention of the deed, she changed the topic. Something was wrong. Even if she had the reputation of the Yang residence, it was because the Yang residence was too big. If they suffered a loss and went to the Yang residence, they might be chased out as blackmailers. They would not be able to complain at all. Therefore, they should consider it again. When Mother Chen heard their words, her expression suddenly turned exceptionally ugly. You don't have the money? That's fine. Why don't you pay a month's deposit first? When you gather the rest, you can pay. As soon as she said this, the couple became even more uneasy. They could only smile and say, that's not appropriate. Well, gather the money first. Well, go now. Well, leave first. Then, the two of them immediately walked out of the shop in a hurry and left without looking back. Jiyu Yundong and Tong Shuidao stood at the entrance of the alley. When they saw the couple come out and Mother Chen spat in the direction of the door, they knew that this deal had not been closed and heaved a sigh of relief. Miss, what should we do now? Jiyu Yundong pursed his lips. Go find Nai Tsong first. Initially, Jiyu Yundong did not want to look for Nai Tsong. She had known Nai Tsong for a long time. She was still considered familiar with him. Previously, when he was still in the Xuanhe prefecture, they had exchanged letters. But after Nai Tsong came to the capital, Jiyu Yundong always contacted Nai Shuang. She had not seen Nai Tsong for a long time. This time, Aunt Ku had given her Nai Tsong's address so that she could look for him for help if she needed anything. Now, she really had to find him. Jiyu Yundong immediately brought Tong Shuidao to the Nai family's address. Nai Tsong seemed to have been promoted as a 7th-grade official in the capital. He had made contributions when he captured the bandit leader during the disaster. Later, he was recommended by Commander Zhao to come to the capital and worked under a general for a year before he was promoted. In the capital, a rank 7 official position was really very small, completely negligible. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1337, Nai Tsong's wife. However, the Nai family was not just a merchant family. They also had a background, connections, and money. Although Nai Tsong was only an insignificant official now, he was very quick-witted. In the future, when he made meritorious contributions and had qualifications, he could still move forward. Therefore, Nai Tsong's future was visible. Nai Tsong's residence was still some distance away from the street where Jiyu Yundong was. Compared to Jiyu Yundong's 3-courtyard house, the Nai residence was much larger. After all, the Nai family was rich and had already bought an estate in the capital. When Jiyu Yundong and Tong Shuidao stood at the entrance of the Nai residence, it was already past noon. She did not have any invitations, so she could only ask the concierge to help pass on a message. The concierge looked at Jiyu Yundong apologetically and said, "Madam, you should come another day. We have something on today and young master is not seeing guests. No visitors." Jiyu Yundong considered whether she should leave or not, but she remembered that her house was far from the Nai family and it was not easy to make a trip there. Hence, she insisted on meeting Knight Song first. She took out a letter from her sleeve and handed it over. "Then I'll have to trouble you to pass this letter to your young master. Tell him that we came from his hometown in Xuanhe Prefecture. His family asked me to pass this letter to him and see if he wants to see me." When the gatekeeper heard that she had come from the Xuanhe Prefecture and had brought a letter from the Nai family, the smile on his face instantly became much more sincere and respectful. He immediately nodded and said, "All right, then wait a moment, madam. I'll be back soon." With that, he ran in with the letter. Jiyu Yundong waited for less than half a quarter before she saw the concierge running over with Knight Song behind him. After being apart for 2 years, Knight Song looked much darker. She still remembered the first time she saw him at the city gate. Although he was wearing the clothes of a soldier, his face was very tender. He did not look like a soldier. Instead, he looked more like a white-faced scholar. At that time, Jiyu Yundong had felt that he was a gentleman and polite. He did things at a moderate pace and had been nurtured since he was young. But now, he had changed drastically. He walked with large strides and became much leaner and capable. In her eyes, Knight Song was a completely different person. In Knight Song's eyes, Jiyu Yundong had also changed. He had a deep impression of that thin, small, and exceptionally tenacious little girl back then. He did not expect that after not seeing her for 2 years, not only had she become prettier, but she had also become someone else's wife. Knight Song quickly stood in front of her. "Sister Jiyu." It was a familiar voice. The barrier between them that they had not seen for 2 years was instantly gone. Jiyu Yundong suddenly smiled widely. "Young Master Nai, long time no see." Knight Song laughed. "Why are you still calling me Young Master Nai?" He shook his head and turned around, but he didn't see Shao Qingyuan. "Where's your husband?" "He had something to do, so I came alone." Knight Song did not probe further. He quickly moved half of his body aside. "Come in first. Let's talk inside." Jiyu Yundong led Tong Shuidao inside. The Nai residence was really big. It was a large courtyard with many servants. Along the way, many people stared at them, as if they were very curious about the woman who had been personally led in by the young master. Jiyu Yundong keenly saw a servant girl rushing to the backyard. She recalled that Knight Song was now a married man and immediately asked, "I haven't seen your wife yet. Should I meet her first? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1338, Second Miss Yang. Jiyu Yundong thought that Knight Song would agree readily, but he did not expect him to frown when he heard this. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "You should meet her, but..." He paused and sighed. "It's just that she's sick. She's resting in the backyard now. All the more reason for me to go over and take a look." Knight Song nodded. "All right, I'll bring you there." As he spoke, he led Jiyu Yundong to the backyard. Soon, they stopped in front of a courtyard called Anhe Garden. Jiyu Yundong immediately saw the servant girl who had run away earlier. She was standing in the courtyard with her head slightly lowered. The two of them entered the courtyard. Jiyu Yundong stood in the central room while Knight Song walked in first. A servant served tea to Jiyu Yundong, so she sat outside and waited slowly. Occasionally, low voices could be heard coming from the inner room. It should be Knight Song telling his wife her identity. After a while, Knight Song came out. "Sister Jiyu, come in." With that, he led her into the inner room. There was still the smell of medicine in the room. It seemed that Knight Song was right. His wife was indeed sick. Jiyu Yundong turned around and saw that a woman had already been helped up. Her forehead was wrapped in gauze and she was leaning against the headboard. She looked over carefully with hazy eyes. Jiyu Yundong was stunned when she saw her face clearly. Wasn't this The second daughter of the Yang family? Yesterday, when the second daughter of the Yang family alighted from the carriage, although she had only caught a glimpse of her, Jiyu Yundong was very sure that she was not mistaken. She then looked at the gauze on her forehead and thought of the news that Kui Lan had smashed second Miss Yang's head yesterday. Jiyu Yundong was speechless. Sister Jiyu, what's wrong? Is there anything wrong with me? A low voice sounded beside her ear. Jiyu Yundong suddenly came back to her senses and hurriedly shook her head. No, there's nothing wrong. She smiled. It's just that it's my first time seeing sister-in-law Nai and I was distracted for a moment. Sister-in-law is very beautiful. Yang Ya immediately lowered her head shyly and whispered, I'm very ugly like this. Sister Jiyu is the beauty here. As she spoke, she quickly pointed. Sister Jiyu, sit. I'm not feeling well. I can't treat you well. I'm really sorry. Jiyu Yundong smiled. I was the one who came uninvited and disturbed your recuperation. I'm the one who should say sorry. Nightsong smiled and interrupted their conversation. All right, you don't have to be so polite anymore. It's weird to hear. He turned to Yang Ya and said, rest well first. Sister Jiyu just came to the capital. I have something to talk to her about. When you're better, you can ask her out to admire the flowers. Okay. Yang Ya agreed. Then, the maidservant beside her helped her lie down again. When Jiyu Yundong and Nightsong walked out of the inner room, she opened her eyes again and looked at their backs. Nightsong led Jiyu Yundong to the reception pavilion and got someone to serve tea. He smiled and said, I've read Aunt's letter. Are you going to stay in the capital for a long time? Have you found a house? I have many courtyards here. Actually, Jiyu Yundong knew what he was thinking and quickly interrupted him. We've already bought a house. It's over at Hetai Lane. Hetai Alley. That's not close. Jiyu Yundong nodded. It's a little far, but the house over there is suitable. By the way, can I ask if sister-in-law's forehead was smashed by Kui Lan? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1339, by Muzi is still here. Nightsong was stunned. At the mention of this, a trace of disgust flashed across his eyes. However, he quickly asked in surprise, how did you know that Miss Kui was the one who smashed her? Because I was outside the Yang residence yesterday and saw Kui Lan enter with my own eyes. I also saw sister-in-law enter the Yang residence. Later on, there were rumors that Kui Lan and sister-in-law had an argument. Jiyu Yundong took a sip of tea and said slowly. Nightsong had an icy expression on his face, but he quickly realized that something was wrong. You know Kui Lan? And, you stayed outside the Yang residence for an entire day? Why do I feel like you were spying on the Yang residence? Jiyu Yundong shook his head and laughed. Nightsong was still the same Nightsong. Moreover, after 2 years of training, he seemed to have become even sharper. She did not hide it and said directly, I do know Kui Lan, and am also keeping an eye on the Yang residence. How come? You know that my mother's head was once injured. That's why she's like a child now. Imperial physician Song said that if we want to cure her, we need a very precious and rare medicine. That medicine is by Muzi. For the past 2 years, I've been looking for by Muzi. Later, I learned from Kui Lan that the Yang residence has such a medicine. By Muzi. Nightsong frowned, and his expression immediately became strange. After a long while, he sighed and said, by Muzi, was used to save my wife yesterday. The Yang residence is also gone. No. Jiyu Yundong interrupted. Nightsong by Muzi should still be in Yang Yihai's hands right now. He's keeping it well. Nightsong looked puzzled. No. Yesterday, after I found out that my wife was injured, I immediately went to the Yang residence and saw the medicine the doctor gave my wife with my own eyes. Then are you sure that it's by Muzi? Jiyu Yundong narrowed her eyes and asked, do you know that there's a medicine in this world that's very similar to by Muzi? Do you know by Muzi? This question rendered Nightsong speechless. He was not a doctor, so it was naturally impossible for him to understand by Muzi. It was only now that he learned from Jiyu Yundong that this medicine was so precious. Nightsong felt that something was amiss. He tapped his fingers lightly on the table. After a long while, he said, "What do you know? How much do you know about Muzi and the Yang residents? Tell me everything. Before I tell you that, can I ask you something else?" Yundong suddenly looked at him curiously. This expression made Knight Song, who was prepared to accept a huge truth, choke. The seriousness from before disappeared. He asked helplessly, "What is it? How did you and sister-in-law become husband and wife?" Yundong's eyes were obviously filled with gossip. The corners of Knight Song's mouth twitched. He didn't look like he wanted to say anything. "Aunt Ku didn't tell you?" Yundong shook her head. "After she went back, she only mentioned to me that you were married." At that time, she was puzzled. Why didn't Knight Song return to the Xuanhe prefecture after getting married? Moreover, it seemed that the Nai family was not very satisfied with this marriage. Otherwise, why would Aunt Ku, Madame Nai, and Nai Shuang be the only ones who came to the capital? Old Master Nai had never come. Knight Song felt uncomfortable under her gaze. He couldn't bring himself to say such a private matter. But Yundong looked as if she would not say anything unless he confessed. It was really frustrating. Forget it. Knight Song heaved a sigh of relief and began to talk about his relationship with Yang Ya. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1340, Knight Song and Yang Ya. Knight Song and Yang Ya met by accident. Yang Ya's life in the Yang family was very difficult. She was the very good-looking daughter of an unloved concubine. Naturally, she would be bullied by others. Moreover, Yang Yihai had always favored boys over girls. He was ambitious and had never cared about the matters in the backyard. Lady Yang was a shrew. In the capital, there were no in-laws to suppress her, and no sisters-in-law to keep an eye on her. That backyard was her say. If she wanted to torture the concubine, she would torture the concubine. If she wanted to treat the daughter of a concubine badly, she would treat the daughter of a concubine badly. As for Yang Ya, she was born in the same year as Miss Yang. Mrs. Yang disliked her even more. Therefore, Yang Ya had been suppressed since she was young. Her personality had become abnormally weak, and she seemed to be very careful and did not dare to speak loudly to anyone. When Knight Song first met her, Yang Ya was being bullied by Miss Yang Ling. Knight Song couldn't stand it anymore and secretly got someone to help her out. However, deep down, Knight Song looked down on Yang Ya. He felt that she was too weak. When faced with trouble, she would retreat and endure as much as she could, as if she had no bottom line at all. Besides, she was good-looking. She would probably die without knowing. After that incident, Knight Song threw Yang Ya to the back of his mind. However, Knight Song soon knew where Yang Ya's bottom line was. At her mother's place, Yang Ya had never retaliated when she was bullied. However, when her mother was bullied, even though she was afraid and trembled all over, she still dared to resist. At that time, Knight Song admired her a little. However, the place where he really interacted with Yang Ya was at the Yang family. At that time, Knight Song was invited by Master Yang to the Yang residence as a guest. After he went, he found out that Master Yang had taken a fancy to him and wanted to betroth his legitimate daughter, Yang Ling, to him. Master Yang knew Knight Song's identity. He was the young master of the Nai family in Xuanhe prefecture. The Nai family and the Yang family also had business dealings. Now that Knight Song had become a 7th grade official and had a superior to promote him, he would definitely be successful in the future. Furthermore, Knight Song himself was elegant and handsome. Yang Ling had taken a fancy to him after meeting him once. However, Knight Song did not have a good impression of Yang Ling, so he naturally rejected Master Yang tactfully. Yang Yihai didn't say anything on the spot. He just smiled and changed the topic, pretending that he hadn't said anything. Although Knight Song was smart, he still lacked some experience in the face of an old fox like Yang Yihai who had been in the business world for many years. He had been set up. The Yang family wanted to catch him in bed with Yang Ling and make them a couple. When Yundong heard this, she stopped drinking her tea. She had probably guessed it. In the end, you and Yang Ya were caught? Yes. Knight Song did not expect the Yang family to be so impolite. Although they were a merchant family, they had to follow the etiquette and rules. However, the Yang family did not care at all. He really wanted to vomit blood from anger when they did such a thing that damaged their reputation. He was indignant at that time and thought of a way to escape. In the end, he accidentally entered Yang Ya's courtyard. In the end, he and Yang Ya were seen by everyone. The other party was Yang Ya, but Knight Song heaved a sigh of relief. He pitied Yang Ya in his heart. This pity made him not reject marrying Yang Ya. If she was weak, so be it. He would spend more effort to protect her or ask the nanny to help her. It was just that getting married to a family like the Yang family made him a little disgusted. However, he had no choice. The matter was settled just like that. To Yang Yihai, although the target had changed from a legitimate daughter to a concubine's daughter, he had achieved his goal of marrying a daughter to Knight Song. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1341, Raised Astray. However, to Mrs. Yang and Yang Ling, this was cutting their hearts. They had put in so much effort to design these things, but in the end, it all benefited that little b** tch Yang Ya. Lady Yang hated Yang Ya to the core and even wanted to kill her before she got married. Fortunately, Knight Song had also thought of this. He sent the nanny who had followed him to the capital to take care of his daily life to the Yang residence. He said that the Nai residence had many rules and asked the nanny to teach Yang Ya first so that she would not make a mistake in the future. Otherwise, if word got out, the Yang residence would lose face. Yang Yihai thought of Yang Ya's unintelligent and timid personality and felt that it made sense, so he agreed. Lady Yang and Yang Ling tried several times, but the nanny caught evidence and brought it to Yang Yihai. Yang Yihai was furious. He wanted to marry into the Nai family, not become enemies. Yang Ya was already Knight Song's fiancée. If she was killed in the Yang residence and the Nai residence's nanny found out, what was the point of joining the two families? Lady Yang and Yang Ling were grounded until Yang Ya got married. Knight Song also wrote a letter and sent it to the Nai family of the Xuanhe prefecture. The Nai family was very dissatisfied that he wanted to marry a concubine's daughter who was not favored in a merchant family. It was fine, as the Nai family was not very noble either. However, this concubine's daughter's personality was completely useless. How could she be the future mistress of the Nai family? How could she raise the future descendants of the Nai family and help Knight Song in the future? In their opinion, this kind of personality could only be used as a concubine or the wife of a small family. As the main wife, she should at least be able to hold her head high. Old Master Nai flew into a rage. He was very disappointed that Knight Song could not even see through such a small trap. Therefore, only Madame Nai Shuang, and the others went to the capital to resolve this matter and participate in the wedding. Yang Ya hadn't even seen her father-in-law yet. She felt even more uneasy. Thankfully, Knight Song treated her well. After being taught by the nanny, she finally changed a little. However, how could a personality that had been nurtured for more than 10 years change so much overnight? Yundong sighed after hearing this. It seemed that some of what she had heard in the tea shop must have been spread by Madame Yang on purpose. She had also seen Yang Ya just now. That woman was indeed a coward. Knight Song should have told her his identity. In the eyes of outsiders, Yundong was just a farmer's daughter-in-law. The second daughter of the Yang family in the capital actually didn't dare to speak loudly in front of her. However, Yundong could not say anything. It was not Yang Ya's fault that she had become like this. It was obvious that Mrs. Yang had deliberately raised her astray. A native family had a huge impact on a person's personality. It was already not easy for her to muster the courage to protect her mother. Now, can you tell me why you're watching the Yang residence? After talking about his past with Yang Ya, Knight Song was still a little embarrassed. He touched his nose and coughed lightly. He quickly changed the topic and asked about serious matters. Didn't I tell you? It's for by Muzi. Yundong took a sip of tea and said with a smile. Knowing Knight Song's attitude towards the Yang residence, Jiyu Yundong was in a good mood. Nightsong frowned. How did you know that the Yang residents had by Muzi? I didn't even know about this. Quilan told me. Jiyu Yundong briefly explained that she had met Quilan on the ship, but Quilan had taken a fancy to her man and used by Muzi to threaten her to leave Shao Qingyuan. In the end, she was almost killed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1342. I'll help you. When Nightsong heard this, he did not say anything for a long time. After a long while, the corners of his mouth twitched. You hung Quilan over the river for half a day? Forced her to tell you? Jiyu Yundong rolled her eyes. Is that the main point? And you have to understand that she attacked me first. Do you want me to pretend that nothing happened? Not really. I just realized that you seem to be especially good at turning passive into active, especially when someone wanted to set her up, she used them in the end. I'll take that as a compliment. Nightsong was speechless. He shook his head to get rid of the messy thoughts in his mind and began to think about Bai Muzi. According to what you said, Bai Muzi is precious, and my father-in-law and uncle don't have a good relationship, so he can't bear to help him repay the favor. He can't bear to give it to the Kui family, so he naturally can't bear to give it to Yang Ya. So, the more Nightsong thought about it, the uglier his expression became. He suddenly stood up and slammed the table. He's clearly using Yang Ya to force the Kui family to give up on Bai Muzi. The Yang family didn't suffer any losses, and Kui Lan didn't suffer any losses. However, only my wife was innocently implicated. Not only was her head smashed, but she also had to watch the Yang family put on a show of deep father-daughter love for us and blame everything on us. It's simply preposterous. Bastard. No wonder after Imperial physician Kui diagnosed her, they sent him away on the grounds that Miss Kui was the culprit. They found another doctor for Yang Ya. They were afraid that Dr. Kui would find out that Bai Muzi was not needed to treat her. Nightsong was furious. He lifted his leg and kicked over a stool at the side. The people outside the door heard a crisp sound and could not help but look inside. They saw the young master's ashen face and sharp eyes. All of them immediately looked at Jiyu Yundong worriedly, thinking that she had made the young master lose his temper. Unexpectedly, Jiyu Yundong was calmly drinking tea. Instead, she looked very relaxed and was not affected by his anger at all. After a long time, she waved her hand for Nightsong to sit down. All right. It's useless to lose your temper now. We have to consider this matter at length. Anyway, we can't let your wife suffer, right? Nightsong sat down and drank 2 mouthfuls of tea before gradually calming down. He glanced at Jiyu Yundong. You want Bai Muzi? Yeah. I'll help you. Phut, cough cough. Jiyu Yundong choked on her tea. Of course, she hoped that Nightsong would help her. She had thought of a lot of words to convince him, but before she could say a word, he took the initiative to mention it. Jiyu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Are you really going to help me? Of course. The Yang residents really thinks him a pushover. It's fine if they bullied Yang Ya in the past, but at that time, she was the daughter of the Yang residents. I couldn't do anything about it. Now, she's already my wife and the young madam of the Nai residents. How dare they brazenly find someone to smash her head? Do they think they can touch our Nai residents just because they want to? Nightsong was really disgusted by the Yang family's actions. The problem was that they even pushed the problem onto him. It was said that Yang Ya's inappropriate words had angered Kui Lan, causing Kui Lan to hit her hard and tell her not to find trouble with the Kui residents. All right, he would not cause trouble for the Kui residents. He would seek revenge from the Yang residents. Jiyu Yundong asked him, how do you plan to help? Nightsong thought for a moment. We have to consider this matter at length. He hadn't thought of it yet. Jiyu Yundong said, actually, I have something else to ask you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1343, Going Too Far. Go ahead. Nightsong knew that Jiyu Yundong had just found out that his wife was the second daughter of the Yang family. There must be something else going on. Jiyu Yundong pursed her lips. You know, Auntie Dai, Nai Shuang, and I opened a milk tea shop in Xuanhe Prefecture. The last time Nai Shuang came to the capital, she bought a shop in the capital and planned to use it to open a milk tea shop. Yes, that's true. I know where the shop is. I'll bring you to take a look later. I've been there, Jiyu Yundong said. Just now, I went to look at the shop according to the address Nai Shuang gave me, but I realized that the door of the shop was open. An old woman called Mother Chen claimed to be Mrs. Yang's servant. She was introducing the shop to someone. She said that she wanted to rent the shop out for 30 taels a month. What did you say? Nai Tsong suddenly stood up, a look of astonishment on his face. Jiyu Yundong asked, the key to the shop, the key to the shop. I asked Yang Yihai to keep it. As expected, Jiyu Yundong sighed. It seemed that the key had either been coaxed away by Mrs. Yang or taken away under threat. Previously, she did not understand. But now, Jiyu Yundong understood what Mrs. Yang was thinking. That shop was empty anyway. If she rented it to someone else, she could earn some rent. How could that not do? It didn't matter even if Nai Tsong found out later. Nai Tsong could be considered her son-in-law anyway. Could he slap her face in public? Men all cared about their face. It was just an empty shop. It wasn't like the Nai family didn't have money. They could just buy another one later. Perhaps this shop would become hers as she rented it. They're going too far. Nai Tsong really didn't expect so many things to happen in one day. He turned around. I'll go ask Yang Yihai. Jiyu Yundong was stunned and quickly pulled him back. She's still injured and timid. If you go over so angrily, she'll think that you're going to denounce her. Won't she be even more afraid in the future? If the couple's relationship was damaged, wouldn't she be the culprit? Nai Tsong clenched his fists tightly. When he thought of Yang Ya's personality, he instantly felt discouraged. He sat back down and rubbed his temples. Why did so many things happen just after returning to the Yang residence? He could not stop her in time. So what should we do? Jiyu Yundong thought for a moment. I'll ask. What's the difference? Speaking of which, he was Yang Ya's husband. No matter what, Jiyu Yundong was still a stranger, right? Jiyu Yundong could not be bothered with him. She stood up, cleaned her clothes, and went back to arn her garden. As expected, Yang Yihai did not sleep. Jiyu Yundong guessed that she would not be able to sleep at this juncture. When she saw Jiyu Yundong coming over, she quickly got up again. Jiyu Yundong immediately stopped her. Yang Yihai turned her head, but she did not see Nai Tsong. She was at a loss. She had a feeling that something bad had happened. Jiyu Yundong secretly exhaled and squeezed out a smile. Her voice became gentler. Sister-in-law, I just found out that you suffered a lot. Your head was smashed by someone. It looks like you bled a lot. How is it? Does it still hurt? To be honest, my husband is also a doctor. He even taught me how to relieve pain. Do you want me to take a look at you? Yang Yihai quickly said, no need, no need. It doesn't hurt. It's just a small injury. It only hurt when I applied the medicine yesterday. It's fine now. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1344, a different version that's good. When sister-in-law is in pain, you must not hold it in. You must use medicine in time when there are injuries. The more you hold it in, the worse it will be. My husband told me that nothing is more important than your health. Yang Yihai nodded and said softly, Sister Jiyu and my husband are so close. You and brother Nai are not bad either. I think He's very concerned about your injuries. Yang Yihai was a little embarrassed, but after talking to Jiyu Yundong about these topics that she had never mentioned to anyone before, she unknowingly relaxed and the topics gradually increased. Jiyu Yundong chatted with her for a while before guiding her to talk about the injury on her head and then Kui Lan. Jiyu Yundong found it strange. What did you say? How dare Kui Lan hit you so hard? Yang Yihai lowered her eyes. Then, Jiyu Yundong heard a different version from Yang Yihai. Kui Lan was indeed talking to Yang Yihai alone in the backyard. Yang Yue only said that she was married and asked Kui Lan to visit her house when she was free. Yang Yue had the courage to say those polite words. Unexpectedly, Kui Lan, who was standing behind her, suddenly reached out and pushed her forward. Yang Ya's head hit the stone table. Therefore, she wasn't hit by a rock at all, but knocked. For some reason, it was completely different outside. Of course, Kui Lan firmly denied that she had done it on purpose. She said that for some reason, her foot slipped. She had wanted to pull Yang Yue to regain balance with her help, but she did not expect to push her back. But these words were not convincing at all. Moreover, even if what she said was true, it was true that Yang Yue was injured from her push. Jiyu Yundong's lips curled up mockingly. So that was how it was. She found it strange. Yang Yue and Kui Lan did not have any deep hatred. They did not know each other in the past. How could Kui Lan be so ruthless to Yang Yue just because of a few words? However, the Yang family blamed her for saying those words in front of Yang Yue. Kui Lan had yet to get married, so she must have been provoked by her. It was fine if Yang Yue got married herself, but she even flaunted in front of Kui Lan. All of this was Yang Ya's fault. Yang Yue was actually convinced just like that. Jiyu Yundong could not help but roll her eyes. This woman was lucky that she had met Knight Song, or she could be easily killed. You were unconscious at that time? Were you conscious when Imperial Physician Kui came? Naturally, she wasn't awake. When Yang Yue woke up, Knight Song was already here. The wound on her head had been bandaged. She didn't even know that Imperial Physician Kui had come to take her pulse. But then I fell asleep again. When I was half asleep, I heard someone talking outside the bed. Mrs. Yang and Yang Ling were the ones who spoke. The two of them were muttering over there, saying that Yang Yihai was biased and actually let her use such a precious by Muzi. In order to save her life, she did not even listen to the old master. The medicine had clearly been promised to be Yang Ling's dowry. Now that the priceless dowry was gone, Yang Ling had suffered a huge loss. Yang Yihai even reprimanded the mother and daughter, saying that Yang Yue was his daughter after all. Although he didn't dote on her in the past, she was still his biological daughter. How could he watch her die? Not to mention by Muzi, even if it was something even more precious, as a father, he would do everything he could to find it. These words made Yang Yue feel complicated. She felt guilty, touched, and uneasy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1345, Returning the Favor. But Jiyu Yundong understood that the whole family knew that she had woken up and was deliberately putting on an act in front of her. Therefore, when Mrs. Yang asked her to give her the key to Nai Shuang's shop, although she was unwilling, she still gave it to her. In the end, Mrs. Yang couldn't wait to get Mrs. Chen to rent the shop out. She wanted to settle it before Knight Song knew. Unexpectedly, as the other owner of the shop, Jiyu Yundong came to the shop and bumped into him. All right, Jiyu Yundong had gotten everything she needed to know from Yang Yue. She saw that Yang Yue was already very tired after saying so much and quickly persuaded her to rest. She only turned around and left after she lay down. Knight Song had been outside the whole time. He had actually heard the conversation between Jiyu Yundong and Yang Yue. It was precisely because he understood everything that his expression became even uglier. When he saw Jiyu Yundong come out, he exhaled slightly. Thank you for today. If you hadn't told me this, I would have been kept in the dark. She didn't even tell me about what happened in the Yang family. As he spoke, he could not help but laugh bitterly. We're already husband and wife. Jiyu Yundong did not know what to say. Although they were husband and wife, Yang Yue felt extremely insecure. There was no one around her to talk to, so she did not know how to say some things. Jiyu Yundong said as they walked out, "Take it slow. Sister-in-law married you under those circumstances back then. She was also afraid that she would trouble you and be hated by you. It's normal for her to have such thoughts. I think you're quite close to her. Now that you're in the capital, you should often come to visit. I think she'll become different if she spends more time with you." Jiyu Yundong's eyes widened. She was very busy. Knight Song hurriedly said, Alternatively, just bring her along wherever you go. Let her see how you do things. Just treat it as doing me a favor, alright? The corners of Jiyu Yundong's mouth twitched. Alright, no matter what, the first person she met when she brought her mother and siblings to the Xuanhe prefecture was Knight Song, who had helped their family a lot. Now that he was faced with a difficult problem, Jiyu Yundong naturally would not reject it. A favor indeed had to be repaid. The two of them walked out of the courtyard and bumped into a nanny on the way. She should be the nanny that Knight Song had said he had sent to Yang Ya's side. As expected, Knight Song introduced, "This is Nanny Chi." Nanny Chi knew Jiyu Yundong. She was very friendly to Jiyu Yundong and greeted her with a smile. Then, Knight Song told Nanny Chi what had happened in the Yang residence. It was obvious that he trusted Nanny Chi very much. Nanny Chi frowned when she heard this. There was obvious anger on her face. What the Yang residence is doing is still so demeaning. Yang Ya is still injured. Please keep her company. Young master, don't worry. I will take good care of young madam. Then, Nanny Chi went to her garden. Previously, Nanny Chi had always protected Yang Ya when she was by her side in the Yang residence. Later on, after Yang Ya married into the Nai residence, because of her personality, Nanny Chi was still by her side. She had brought Yang Ya to handle family matters, but it had only been a short time. In addition, when they got married, the Nai family was not very satisfied with Yang Ya, so Yang Ya did not dare to take charge of family matters. This resulted in no progress. Nanny Chi had no choice. Yang Ya's personality could not be nurtured overnight. She could only slowly change. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1346. Do you dare to make a move? Jiyu Yundong and Knight Song returned to the hall and asked him, "What are your plans for the Yang residence?" "First, we have to clear Yang Ya's name. Everybody said that it was her own fault that Kui Lan hit her because of Yang Ya's loose tongue. Everybody said that the Yang family had even disobeyed old Master Yang's orders to save Yang Ya, making Yang Yihai and his wife be blamed by old Master Yang for being unfilial. Everybody said that the Yang family even took out Yang Ling's dowry to save Yang Ya's life. All of this was clearly a conspiracy, but in the end, Yang Ya had to carry all of the blame. Why? Was it because they had not tortured her enough in the past? Now that she was no longer in their control, they had changed their method to shackle her? Dream on. She had to expose these lies one by one so that Yang Ya would no longer feel uneasy about the Yang residence. It also made all the rumors outside transfer to the Yang residence. Yang Ya did not dare to go out now. How could it not be because of these rumors? Except, do you have any ideas? It did not occur to him for a moment. Jiyu Yundong glanced at him and then at him again. Knight Song felt uncomfortable under her gaze. If you have an idea, just say it. Don't have such an expression. Otherwise, I feel like I'm going to be schemed against. Jiyu Yundong was speechless. Was her character that bad? Jiyu Yundong snorted and finally said, "I have an idea. I just want to ask you if you dare to blow this matter up." Blow this matter up? Yeah, I dare. Jiyu Yundong paused. Even if it blows up, it might put sister-in-law in a difficult situation. Isn't she in a difficult enough situation already? Jiyu Yundong thought about it and felt that it made sense. In fact, if the matter blew up, the Yang family's reputation would be damaged. Although Yang Ya might be affected, she was already married to Knight Song. As long as Knight Song's attitude towards her remained unchanged, the impact would be limited. It was better than being schemed against by her family. The good reputation went to Yang Yihai, Mrs. Yang, and Yang Ling's family. In the end, she had to bear all the bad reputation and not even have a friend. Tell me first. What's your idea? Jiyu Yundong exhaled and told him her plan in a low voice. Knight Song nodded as he listened. A moment later, he suddenly clapped his hands. It's feasible. But we still have to rely on sister-in-law for this plan. Tell sister-in-law clearly later and ask her if she agrees. Knight Song said nonchalantly, she will definitely agree. We are doing this for her own good. Jiyu Yundong, she resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Knight Song, this is the reason why Yang Yue didn't tell you about those things. You also said that you're husband and wife. Since you're husband and wife, shouldn't you explain these things clearly? Especially since this is closely related to her. What if you don't explain clearly and she misunderstands? If you don't say anything and she doesn't say anything, are you going to continue being husband and wife? Knight Song was stunned. He thought about it and felt that it made sense. All right, go back and ask sister-in-law first. I'll come back tomorrow. If she agrees, well, carry out the plan. Jiyu Yundong looked like she was about to leave. If she doesn't agree, well, think about other things. Remember, speak nicely and patiently. Make it clear so that sister-in-law understands that you're helping her vent her anger and make her feel at ease. Knight Song nodded. Got it. You're leaving just like that. Aren't you staying for dinner? No, thank you. Knight Song could only send her out. Unexpectedly, just as she reached the door, she saw someone standing in the corner outside. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1347. The Emperor's Gift. Jiyu Yundong's eyes lit up when she saw him and she quickly ran over. Brother Shao, you're back? Yes, I came back in the afternoon. Shao Qingyuan smiled at her, then looked up and nodded at Knight Song. Long time no see, young master Nai. Long time no see. I didn't expect the person who was almost arrested and sent to the government office to become Sister Gus' husband. Knight Song still remembered the first time he met him. Shao Qingyuan had been reported as a thief and was captured by 2 constables to the government office. At that time, it should have been the first time Shao Qingyuan and Jiyu Yundong met. They were quite fated. At the mention of his dark history, Shao Qingyuan's face stiffened for a moment. However, he quickly returned to normal. He nodded at Knight Song. Thank you for your help back then, young master Nai. Haha, sure. Knight Song wanted to invite Shao Qingyuan in, but he was rejected. We still have something to do. Well, visit another day. Knight Song did not force them and watched them leave. Shao Wen led the carriage and stood not far away. The 2 of them chatted as they walked towards the carriage. Brother Shao, how did you know that I was in the Nai residence? Shao Wen said that you went to look at the shop, but I didn't see you when I went to the shop. I asked around and heard that an old woman brought people over to rent out the shop. I guessed that you might want to ask Knight Song about the situation, so I came over. Shao Qingyuan spoke to Jiyu Yundong in a completely different tone than he spoke to Knight Song. Brother Shao, you're getting smarter and smarter. You taught me well. Have you seen Imperial Physician Song? I happen to have something I need his help with. I saw him. I'll bring you there another day. Okay. Knight Song stood at the entrance and watched as their figures got further and further away. He suddenly felt a heavy blow in his heart. This was the first time he had seen a couple interact like this. Perhaps Jiyu Yundong was right, to be honest. He took a deep breath, turned around, and strode towards the Anhe garden. Jiyu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan also got into the carriage. Tong Shuidao sat on the shaft outside. As soon as the carriage moved, Jiyu Yundong told Shao Qingyuan everything that had happened in the past 2 days. Shao Qingyuan frowned. Knight Song's wife is actually the second daughter of the Yang family. Yeah, I was also shocked when I saw it previously. Then how do you plan to obtain by Muzi? Jiyu Yundong chuckled. That's why I need Imperial Physician Song's help. Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but pinch her nose. He will definitely help. Even if he didn't help, Shao Qingyuan would persuade him until he changed his mind. Jiyu Yundong asked about his visit to the Emperor. Actually, there was nothing special. It was just a report on the vaccination. The Emperor was busy every day and didn't have the time to chat with Shao Qingyuan. Moreover, Wenzheng had returned to the capital a few days earlier than them. He had already said what he needed to say. However, before Shao Qingyuan left, the Emperor mentioned Jiyu Yundong and said that he wanted to see her when he had the chance. By the way, the Emperor also gave you a gift. A gift? Yes, for our wedding. Jiyu Yundong was instantly interested. Where is it? At home, of course. Shao Qingyuan saw her looking around and laughed. He couldn't bring it with him. Yundong was a little disappointed. Fortunately, the carriage soon arrived at Hatai Alley. After alighting from the carriage, Yundong could not wait to enter the house to see the gift from the emperor. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1348. Starting today it was a jade ruyi. Yundong looked at the 2 centimeters long jade ruyi in front of her and the corners of her mouth twitched. Alright, she should have known. How novel could the wedding gift that the emperor had thought of at the last minute be? However, at least this was a reward from the emperor, so the meaning was different. Yundong touched the jade ruyi. I'll find a box and keep it properly. I can't lose this. It's fine as long as you make the decision. Shao Qingyuan looked at her excited expression and felt much better. Yundong searched for a long time but could not find a box. In the end, she found one in her spatial storage and pretended to find it in the corner to keep the jade ruyi. After putting it away, Yundong asked about Shao Qingyuan and Imperial Physician Song. Has he left the palace? He left the palace. He came out with me this afternoon. Song Dejiang had been in the palace for the past 2 days because the empress had fallen ill and could not recover. Now that she had finally recovered, Song Dejiang was also exhausted. This was how it was to treat the nobles in the palace. It was not easy to be an imperial physician. Yundong sympathized with Song Dejiang, so her original plan to visit him tomorrow morning was changed to this afternoon. The next morning, Yundong and Shao Qingyuan went to the Nai residence first. He wondered how Knight Song and Yang Yihai were doing. When the 2 of them entered the Nai residence this time, the gatekeeper let them in directly. When Yundong saw Yang Yihai again, she realized that her eyes were a little red and swollen, as if she had cried hard. However, it was also very obvious that the situation between her and Knight Song had changed. How should it be put? It was as if the unfamiliar distance from before was gone. Yundong glanced at Knight Song, who coughed lightly and blushed. Yundong raised her eyebrows. It seemed that they had had an open talk. Yang Ya's voice was slightly hoarse. Compared to yesterday, she was much more energetic. She looked at Yundong and said, Sister I already know. My husband told me about the Yang residence. I was too stupid to see what was going on. Now I know everything. I think your plan is good. I agree. Yundong was stunned and confirmed again. Do you know what you might face after this plan? I know. Maybe. I don't have a family anymore. Yang Yihai lowered her head slightly and smiled bitterly. Actually, I don't have a family now. After a woman was married, her family was her backing, which was to stand up for her after she suffered from her in-laws, so that she would have a way out after being bullied. However, with Yang Yihai, her maternal family was the one who really pulled her into eternal damnation. Then your mother, Yundong knew that she still had someone she could not let go of. Yang Yihai raised her head and smiled. She doesn't have much attachment to the Yang family to begin with. If it weren't for the fact that she couldn't bear to part with me, she would have wanted to go to a Daoist temple to cultivate a few years ago. After I got married, she planned to go. I thought too simply that my father would more or less care about my current status. I thought that her life would be better. Unexpectedly, her father did not mind sacrificing her for Muzi. It was obvious that her mother's life in the residence was not easy either. Yundong sighed inwardly. However, she was relieved that Yang Yihai had really gotten over it. She looked at Knight Song then. Shall we start tomorrow? No need. Let's do it today. The earlier the better. Knight Song narrowed his eyes, his lips curling into a cold smile. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1349. Things have been made big. Everyone's opinions were unanimous, and the rest was easy. After Yundong and Shao Qingyuan left the Nai residence, they went straight to look for Song Dejiang. As for Knight Song, he came to the Kui residence aggressively, wanting to settle scores with Kui Lan. Imperial physician Kui and his daughter, who originally thought that everything was over, were stunned when they saw him bringing people to attack them. Nightsong pointed at Kui Lan and scolded, "My wife had no grievances with you. She only said that she was getting married and kindly invited you to her house as a guest. How did she offend you? How did these 2 sentences offend you that you were so ruthless to her and wanted to kill her?" Kui Lan's face turned pale. When Nightsong came to look for her, all the neighbors nearby had come to watch the commotion. When they heard this, they immediately started whispering. Kui Lan's reputation was not good to begin with. She did not have a smile on her face all day long, and she basically did not respond to her neighbors' greetings. As time passed, everyone felt that this person was not easy to get along with. Especially after Kui Lan started studying medicine and ran around with her father to treat men, she did not know how to avoid it at all, so everyone looked at her even more strangely. 2 days ago, what happened in the Yang residence had actually spread here. Although Kui Lan had explained, no one believed her. No one knew where the rumors came from, but they said that she ran to someone's house and smashed the Yang family's daughter's head with a stone. This was terrible. Was there something wrong with this girl's brain? Hence, the Kui father and daughter did not go out for the past 2 days and stayed at home obediently. Unexpectedly, Nightsong came knocking on their door and shouted loudly even though they were keeping a low profile. It was ridiculous. Imperial physician Kui was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He stood in front of Kui Lan and said, "Nonsense, you're simply spouting nonsense. My daughter didn't harm Madame Yang at all. She slipped and accidentally pushed your wife, causing her to hit the stone table. How did she become ruthless?" Kui Lan, who was standing behind him, also defended herself loudly. "Yes, I accidentally slipped. I didn't push her at all. I didn't. Don't slander me here. Get out, get out. Accidentally pushed her? Why is it completely different from what my father-in-law said? Besides, how can it be so coincidental that you slipped after my wife said that? Who would believe that? Let me tell you, my wife is unconscious now. As her husband, I will definitely not let this matter rest." You, Imperial physician Kui was furious. "I don't know what Master Yang said, but this was an accident. You make it sound so nice. Can an accident offset a life?" Nightsong sneered as he took a step forward. Imperial physician Kui gritted his teeth. "What do you mean by a life? Isn't your wife alive and well now?" "Alive and well? She's unconscious and half dead." Nightsong was aggressive, but Imperial physician Kui did not back down. One wanted to seek justice for his wife, while the other wanted to prove his daughter's innocence. For a moment, no one could convince the other. Seeing that the 2 sides were about to fight, they finally attracted the officials of the imperial capital. Imperial physician Kui was an imperial physician, and Nightsong was a 7th grade official. Both of them had official positions. Now that a life seemed to be involved, the capital magistrate naturally could not ignore it. Things had gotten out of hand. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1350, Yang Yihai's panic. The magistrate of the capital personally tried this case, but no one was convinced. The magistrate quickly found the other parties involved, the 3 members of the Yang family. Initially, he wanted to ask Yang Yihai to come over, but when he heard that Yang Yihai was lying on the bed unconscious, he could only give up. Yang Yihai was stunned. He never expected Nightsong to demand an explanation from the Kui family. He thought that everybody had reached a consensus on this matter. Now that things had blown up, Yang Yihai was a little flustered. He secretly glared at Nightsong. "Didn't I tell you not to find trouble with the Kui family? Isn't this matter already over? I didn't plan to look for the Kui family at first, but the prerequisite is that my wife is safe and sound. But now, her condition is getting worse and worse. She has been unconscious since this morning and her breathing is weak. She looks like she's about to lose her life. Shouldn't I find the culprit and let Kui Lan die with my wife?" Yang Yihai's eyes widened in shock. "What did you say? She's unconscious and her breathing is weak. How is that possible? Why is it impossible?" Knight Song said loudly. Father-in-law, you said that Yang Ya would be fine if she used by Muzi. How did it become like this? Yang Yihai suddenly felt a little guilty. When he saw Imperial Physician Kui beside him, he hurriedly said, yes, Imperial Physician Kui said that by Muzi can save Yang Ya's life. Knight Song immediately sneered. Doesn't that mean that the father and daughter have joined forces to harm my wife? All the more reason for me to settle the score with them. Yang Yihai said softly, then you should discuss it with me. No matter what, I'm your father-in-law and Yang Ya's father. I was so angry that I couldn't care less. Knight Song didn't look like he wanted to suppress his voice at all, so the magistrate in the hall heard him clearly. He didn't stop them and let them speak. Then, he figured out the cause and effect of the matter. Not only him, but the commoners outside also heard it clearly. Imperial Physician Kui, who was at the side, heard everything clearly. He immediately retorted, I was telling the truth. Bai Muzi could indeed save Lady Yang's life. However, I didn't give Bai Muzi to her. Master Yang found another doctor to treat her. If anything went wrong during this process, it wasn't my fault. Knight Song snorted. Are you saying that the doctor my father-in-law found was useless? Yang Yihai quickly explained, how is that possible? Although the doctor I found can't compare to Imperial Physician Kui, his medical skills are not bad. The few of them wrangled around, and the hall was a little chaotic. The magistrate heard the gist of it and more or less understood the cause and effect. Hence, he immediately slammed the wooden stick heavily. Silence, answer my questions honestly. Yes, sir. The magistrate swept his gaze across the people in the hall one by one. A moment later, he began to ask, from the beginning, Madame Yang was pushed to the ground and injured. Now, Madame Kui said that she accidentally pulled Madame Yang after she slipped, but Master Yang also said that Madame Kui was agitated and deliberately attacked. Both sides have their own arguments, but they can't prove themselves. In my opinion, why don't we go to the scene and reconstruct what happened to see whose confession is more reasonable? Actually, in the eyes of the magistrate, what Master Yang said was quite problematic. After all, who would suddenly go crazy and attack after hearing 2 sentences? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1351. Simple. However, when he thought about Quilan's reputation and her personality, he felt that it was possible for her to be impulsive. Therefore, the magistrate suggested that they go to the scene to take a look. Knight Song knew that this magistrate of the capital was a practical person, so he was never afraid of things getting out of hand. It was difficult to prove that she had really slipped. After all, it had been a few days. Could it be that the stone that caused Quilan to slip was still there? How could they prove it? But it did not matter. Knight Song's original intention was not to prove this matter. As long as the magistrate investigated, some clues would naturally be dug out. For example, who was the person who had Imperial Physician Kui check their pulse and prove that they needed Bai Muzi to save their life? In any case, it was not Yang Ya. Yang Ya's injuries were not serious. How could an Imperial physician like Imperial Physician Kui not notice? According to Knight Song's understanding, when Imperial Physician Kui took the pulse, it was through the bed curtains. The person in the bed curtains reached out for Imperial Physician Kui to take their pulse, and Imperial Physician Kui did not see who was inside at all. The Yang family had deliberately found someone who needed Bai Muzi to save his life. How could there be no trace of such a thing? The magistrate could discover it if he investigated seriously. If he were to make deductions after discovering it, it would be obvious what the Yang family had done. As expected, the magistrate brought people to the backyard of the Yang residence. There was no way to determine if Quilan had slipped or done it on purpose. However, when he asked the servants in the residence, he heard that something was amiss. Soon, the magistrate realized that the person whose pulse Imperial Physician Kui checked back then was not second Miss Yang at all. It was someone who had been judged by another doctor to need Bai Muzi to save his life. After that person was brought back to the residence by Yang Yihai to recuperate for a day, Yang Ya's accident happened. Imperial Physician Kui's expression turned extremely ugly when he found out. He suddenly pointed at Yang Yihai and said angrily, "Were you lying to me? You didn't use by Muzi at all. I understand. You didn't want to listen to your brother and give by Muzi to the Kui family, so you schemed to make me give up on by Muzi automatically. You even used your own daughter. No wonder he felt that something was wrong when he took her pulse. That's right, that person's injuries didn't look like they had just happened." However, at that time, the Yang family kept criticizing Kui Lan in his ear. They cried, threw a tantrum, and wanted to settle scores. He loved his daughter so much that he was frustrated. He subconsciously ignored the details. Imperial physician Kui was extremely ashamed. If he had discovered it earlier, his daughter might not have had to endure these rumors at all. Nightsong's face was also filled with disbelief. He looked at Yang Yihai and asked in shock, "Father-in-law, is what Imperial physician Kui said true? For by Muzi, you actually deliberately let Kui Lan slip and push my wife. How could you do this? Did you want to kill her?" "I didn't." Yang Yihai denied. "How could I do such a thing? By Muzi was indeed used by Yang Ya. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be alive." He refused to admit that he had set up his daughter. He was even furious and wanted to pounce on Imperial physician Kui. "Your daughter almost killed my daughter. Now, for the sake of her innocence, you want to push all the blame to our Yang family. Do you have a conscience?" The magistrate frowned, and someone immediately came up to stop Yang Yihai. Imperial physician Kui had already regained his rationality. When he heard this, he sneered. "Master Yang, there's no need to be so agitated. It's actually very simple to prove who designed all of this. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1352, Song Dejiang appears. How do you prove it? Nightsong asked cooperatively. Imperial physician Kui narrowed his eyes slightly. "Let me take young Madam Niece's pulse again. I can tell if she has used by Muzi." Yang Yihai's expression changed slightly. Then, he rejected him even more righteously. "That's impossible. If you take her pulse, what if you have selfish motives and play tricks?" "I don't agree." However, the magistrate nodded and said, "I think Imperial physician Kui's method is feasible, but Master Yang is right. Imperial physician Kui is involved, so it's not appropriate to diagnose Lady Yang. Just find another doctor." "Sir, Lady Yang's injuries are serious. Ordinary doctors might not be able to tell." Imperial physician Kui frowned. He did not object to looking for others, but it was useless if they could not tell. However, Imperial physician Kui was an imperial physician. How many doctors were better than him? Nightsong pursed his lips and looked at a subordinate behind the magistrate. The subordinate nodded slightly and went to the magistrate's side. "Sir, I heard that Imperial physician Song left the palace yesterday and is resting at home. Why don't we try and ask Imperial physician Song for help?" Imperial physician Kui's eyes lit up. "That's right, wasn't Imperial physician Song a ready-made candidate?" "Imperial physician Song?" The magistrate frowned. "That guy has a very strange temper. It's rare for him to take a break. If we disturb him, I'm afraid he won't help. Lord, I heard that Imperial physician Song loves to treat difficult illnesses. Look, Madam Yang is currently in a coma, so it can be considered a difficult illness. Furthermore, as the head of the Imperial Hospital, Imperial physician Song has the responsibility to cooperate with our investigation when he finds out that his Imperial physicians are involved in the case, right?" The magistrate felt that it made sense and nodded. Indeed. Cold sweat broke out on Yang Yihai's forehead when he heard that. "Ask Imperial physician Song to come over." "No, my lord, Imperial physician Kui is on good terms with Imperial physician Song. Who knows if he will cover up for him? Shut up." The magistrate suddenly shouted angrily, "Imperial physician Song is the head of the Imperial Hospital appointed by the current emperor. The emperor personally said that Imperial physician Song is benevolent and fair. You haven't even seen him yet and you dare to question Imperial physician Song's morals. I think you're clearly guilty." Yang Yihai broke out in cold sweat after being shouted at by the magistrate. He hurriedly knelt down and said, "I was careless and said something wrong. Please forgive me." The magistrate snorted coldly. "Get up. We'll talk about whether you're guilty when Imperial Physician Song comes. Don't say anything else about Imperial Physician Song covering up for anybody. Otherwise, according to you, I've worked with Imperial Physician Kui before. Do you think he'll cover up for him too?" I wouldn't dare. Yang Yihai stood up, but his head was lowered, and his heart was trembling. It was over. He was done for. His mind was spinning crazily, trying to think of some useful way to get through. However, the capital magistrate had already sent someone to invite Imperial Physician Song. He originally thought that Imperial Physician Song would decline. He did not expect him to come immediately. Imperial Physician Song even asked very professionally, "Where is the patient?" Knight Song led everyone into the Nai residence. The capital magistrate also brought Imperial Physician Kui, Master Yang, and the others in. However, they stopped at Anhe Garden. The magistrate sent an old woman to follow Song Dejiang into the inner room. Yang Yihai lay on the bed. Her face was pale and her breathing was very weak. Knight Song sat on the edge of the bed and grabbed one of Yang Ya's hands. He looked up at Song Dejiang eagerly. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1353, Song Dejiang's Anger. Imperial Physician Song, please take a look at my wife. She has been unconscious for an entire day. I'm really worried that she will. Song Dejiang secretly pursed his lips. When he raised his head, he said with a serious expression, "Lord Nai, don't worry. Since I'm here, I'll naturally do my best to treat the patient. Please put your wife's hand down first and stand at the side without making a sound." All right. Thank you, Imperial Physician Song." Knight Song immediately put down Yang Ya's hand, got up, and stood behind Song Dejiang. Song Dejiang asked the old woman who had followed her in to put a handkerchief on Yang Ya's wrist. Then, he sat at the side and closed his eyes to take her pulse. However, the more he examined, the uglier his expression became. In the end, his expression became even more serious, as if he had encountered a difficult illness. Knight Song held his breath as he watched from the side. He wanted to speak, but he was afraid of disturbing him. After a while, Imperial Physician Song retracted his hand. Knight Song hurriedly asked, "How is my wife?" Song Dejiang didn't answer him. He continued to instruct the old woman beside him, "Untie the cloth on young Madam Ni's head and let me take a look." "Yes." The old woman quickly and carefully removed the cloth. With this, the wound inside was revealed. The old woman took a look and suddenly gasped. She suddenly took 2 steps back. Imperial Physician Song, "Look." Song Dejiang wasn't the only one who saw it. Knight Song also saw it. His expression changed drastically. How did this happen? Yang Ya's wound had completely festered and was flowing with pus. It was an especially shocking sight. Knight Song grabbed Imperial Physician Song's hand and shouted on the spot, "Imperial Physician Song, you must save her. I beg you, you must save her." When the people outside heard Knight Song's voice, they were shocked and looked at each other. Immediately after, they saw the old woman quickly walk out to the magistrate's side. She said, "Sir, Lady Yang's injuries are very bad. I'm afraid the odds are slim." The magistrate suddenly frowned. Yang Yihai was also stunned. How could that be? It was clearly not serious when her wound was bandaged a few days ago. She woke up at that time and was even sent back to the Nai family. Imperial Physician Kui also pursed his lips. Although there might be a conspiracy in the Yang family, Yang Yihai had indeed been pushed by Kui Lan. If Yang Ya's life could not be saved, then Kui Lan, at this moment, other than Yang Ling and her daughter, who had been silent the entire time, no one in the courtyard wanted anything to happen to Yang Yihai. However, reality often did not go as planned. Soon, Song Dejiang came out with an ugly expression. Knight Song followed closely behind. However, his eyes were red and his hands were clenched tightly. He looked very agitated. The magistrate hurried forward and asked, "How is it?" Song Dejiang flew into a rage on the spot and said, "Nonsense, This is simply nonsense, too ridiculous. How can you treat illnesses like this? You're simply not thinking clearly. You don't take human lives seriously. The magistrate hurriedly got an old woman to pour him a cup of tea. After he drank it, he asked, "How is it? Can you tell the seriousness of Madame Yang's injuries? Did she use by Muzi?" Yang Yihai and Imperial Physician Kui immediately became nervous. Song Dejiang slammed the table on the spot. Of course she's never used by Muzi. Not only has she never used that, but she's also used the wrong medicine. What do you mean? The magistrate glanced at the pale Yang Yihai and asked. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1354, Scapegoat. Song Dejiang snorted coldly. Young Madame Ni's injuries weren't serious to begin with. Although she injured her brain by hitting the rock, as long as she was treated well and rested for a few days, she would be fine. Bai Muzi wouldn't be needed for that injury at all. However, she happened to meet a quack who used other medicine on her. Not only did her originally wound not heal, but it even festered and caused pus. The more he spoke, the angrier he became. You have to know that the human brain is very complicated to begin with. Even us imperial physicians don't dare to be disrespectful when faced with such a situation. We have to be very careful. Otherwise, if we're not careful, such a wound might directly cause people to fall unconscious, blind, deaf, and all kinds of illnesses. The current young Madame Ni is in the worst situation. Her condition is already very serious. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid, the magistrate hurriedly asked, then what should we do? Imperial Physician Song sighed. Originally, young Madame Ni's injuries didn't require Bai Muzi. Now, only Bai Muzi can save her. When Imperial Physician Kui heard this, he said on the spot, Master Yang, what else do you have to say? Lord, you heard it. Master Yang didn't use that medicinal herb on Madame Yang at all back then. Madame Yang's previous injuries weren't serious either. All of this was orchestrated by the Yang family. They used their biological daughter to frame my daughter just to keep the Bai Muzi for themselves. Before the magistrate could speak, Knight Song had already rushed forward. He didn't care if Master Yang was his father-in-law at all. He grabbed the man's collar and said with a livid expression, "Are you still human? That's your daughter, your biological daughter. It's fine if you used her, but why didn't you treat her injuries properly? She's now the madam of my Nai family. Do you have any respect for my Nai family?" Heir. As he spoke, he clenched his fists, as if he was about to punch him. The magistrate hurriedly pulled him back. There was no choice. There were not many people in the courtyard of Anhe Garden. He could only stop it himself. Calm down, young Master Nai, now is not the time to be rash. The most important thing is to quickly treat your wife's injuries. Knight Song struggled for a while but could not break free. He gradually calmed down. He glared at Yang Yihai. Where's Bai Muzi? Since Bai Muzi is still in your hands, quickly hand it out and help Imperial Physician Song save Yang Ya. Yang Yihai gritted his teeth and looked up, wanting to say something. The magistrate narrowed his eyes. Yang Yihai, now that the evidence is conclusive, what else do you have to say? It's a fact that you slandered Imperial Physician Kui and his daughter and severely injured young Madame Nai. Come back to the government office with me and explain the matter clearly. Yang Yihai choked on his words. He clenched his fists and turned to look at Mrs. Yang. Lady Yang met his meaningful gaze and immediately felt a chill in her heart. They had been husband and wife for many years. What did she not understand? Old Master wanted her to take the blame. But Lady Yang hesitated. After everyone returned to the government office, the magistrate began the interrogation again. Yang Yihai looked at Mrs. Yang a few times. In the end, Mrs. Yang could not withstand the pressure and could only cry out and admit all her crimes. Lord, please spare my life. I was blinded by greed and did not want Bai Muzi to fall into the hands of others. I also hated Yang Ya for marrying a good husband and was afraid that she would come back for revenge after a good life. That's why I had bad thoughts. All of this is my fault. Master, he did not know, If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1355. Obtaining by Muzi. Yihai immediately looked at her in shock. What did you say? Everyone was speechless. Did he think that everyone else was stupid? However, Mrs. Yang gritted her teeth and confessed to the crime. Master Yang looked heartbroken and even pleaded for Mrs. Yang. Moreover, there was no direct evidence to prove that Master Yang was behind this, so the magistrate had no choice but to convict Mrs. Yang. However, since Master Yang had previously planned to use by Muzi to save his daughter's life, and now that Yang Ya's life was indeed at stake, it was a good opportunity to show Master Yang's fatherly heart. The magistrate immediately ordered Master Yang to send by Muzi to Imperial Physician Song so that he could use it. Yang Yihai's heart ached terribly, but since things had come to this, he could only hand by Muzi over with both hands. With Imperial Physician Song around, he could not use other medicines this time. As for Lady Yang, although she had confessed, the crime was not serious. After all, between Qilan and Yang Ya who had been harmed, Qilan had been harmed by rumors, but this situation was not easy to punish. As for Yang Ya, she was Mrs. Yang's daughter after all. If her mother was severely punished because of her, Yang Ya would still be accused of being unfilial. Therefore, in the end, the magistrate sentenced Mrs. Yang to 50 strokes of the paddle and fined her some silver. He then sent her back to reflect on her actions. Mrs. Yang was carried back. Half of her life was gone after 50 strokes. However, just as they were about to leave the government office, Knight Song suddenly stopped in his tracks. He looked at Mrs. Yang coldly and said, "Mrs. Yang is so heartless to my wife, but you still tricked her into giving you the key to the shop on Jinlan Street and let Mother Chen rent it out in the name of the Yang family. You're really shameless." Yang Yihai was stunned. He really did not know about this. Knight Song lifted his chin slightly. "Since Mrs. Yang thinks that the key looks good, I'll give it to you. I'll get someone to change the lock of the shop." Yang Yihai's face turned green as he shouted angrily at Mrs. Yang, "Aren't you going to hand over the key?" Lady Yang trembled and said shakily, "The key is in the residence." Yang Yihai was exasperated. "Is my Yang residence short of food or drink for you? Do you have to be greedy for that little rent? There are so many shops in our Yang family. Aren't they enough for you to deal with? You've really embarrassed me." Lady Yang had a bad temper to begin with. This time, she took the blame for Yang Yihai because she thought that the Yang residence could not lack a man in charge. It was for her and her daughter's future. However, not only was Yang Yihai not grateful, he even scolded her in front of everyone for that little bit of face. Lady Yang was immediately furious. She didn't even care about the pain of her injuries. She bared her teeth and scolded him. "What's the use of that little bit of money you gave me? Aren't you the one who controls the money at home? I'm the mistress of the household and I manage the huge Yang residence. I only have so little money. What can I do? There are shops at home, but do you want me to manage them? You still have the cheek to criticize me. You bastard, I've already taken the blame." Before she could finish speaking, Yang Yihai stopped her. All right. There's no need to shout about this everywhere. We'll talk about it when we get back. You're still injured." Then, he turned to Knight Song and said, "I'll get someone to send the key to you when we get back. You should hurry back too. Yang Ya is still waiting for you at home." Although Lady Yang was unwilling, she still snorted and stopped talking. After the Yang family left, Knight Song only watched from afar. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1356. Falling out. After this incident, Knight Song had completely fallen out with the Yang residents. Although they were still father and son-in-law on the surface, they both knew in their hearts that this was Yang Yihai's idea and Mrs. Yang had taken the blame. Knight Song was angry and did not interact with the Yang residents, so Yang Yihai could not say anything. However, Yang Yihai definitely couldn't bear to part with a big tree like the Nai family. Especially after this incident, the Yang family's reputation would definitely be damaged, and their business would probably plummet. After all, No one wanted to do business with someone with a problematic reputation. This time, they had really suffered a double loss. Because of this, Yang Yihai was even more unwilling to give up on the Nai family. It didn't matter. Their relationship was stiff now because Knight Song was in a fit of anger. However, Yang Ya's mother was still in the residence, and Yang Ya had that kind of personality. Recently, she would be cold to Lady Yang and doted on his concubine. Later, he would ask her to persuade Yang Ya and they would be meeting again soon. However, Yang Yihai did not expect this. As soon as he returned home, he heard from his servant that aunt who had heard that master had almost killed Yang Ya for a medicinal herb. She was disheartened and decided to cultivate in a Daoist temple. Now, she had packed her bags and was ready to leave. Yang Yihai was furious when he heard that. He ran to concubine whose courtyard angrily, wanting her to give up on cultivating. However, aunt who held the hairpin to her neck and threatened to kill herself. Yang Yihai was shocked when the usually weak woman suddenly became so crazy. For a moment, he did not know what to do. He had encountered too many things today, causing his mind to be in a mess. However, at this moment, Knight Song came to the door again, saying that he was worried and wanted to personally retrieve the key. When he heard that aunt who had almost committed suicide, he immediately rushed over and said that Yang Yihai was going to vent his anger on aunt who due to the loss of Muzi. She took the key and protected aunt who as she left the Yang residence. Yang Yihai did not dare to push it too far. If something happened to aunt who, the Yang family would be worse off if word got out. They would no longer have a place in the capital. Therefore, when Knight Song left with aunt who, Yang Yihai did not stop her. He thought that it would be good for her to calm down first. He did not expect that once she left, she would never have the chance to come back. Because the Daoist temple that concubine who went to later had a background, the Abbey Dean was once the eldest princess. Even though this princess was already old and had long cut off all ties with the imperial family, with Yang Yihai's status, even if this eldest princess was someone hated by the imperial family, he did not dare to offend her. Knight Song first brought aunt who back to the Nai residence and let her meet Yang Ya. After the mother and daughter spoke, he arranged for her to stay and sent her to the Daoist temple another day. Then, Knight Song returned to her garden and looked at Jiyu Yundong, Shao Qingyuan, and Song Dejiang, who were already sitting in the room. Song Dejiang was holding by Muzi, but he was glaring at Jiyu Yundong as if he had a feud with her. Knight Song walked over and sat on the edge of the bed to look at Yang Ya's forehead. Her forehead was deliberately injured. In fact, Yang Ya's injuries were almost healed. She would be fine after resting for 2 more days. At this moment, the wound on her forehead had been wiped clean and she looked much more refreshed. Knight Song was relieved. Only then did he look at Song Dejiang, who still did not look too good. He hesitated for a moment before asking worriedly, Imperial Physician Song, is there a problem? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1357, Killing 3 Birds with 1 Stone. Song Dejiang snorted. There's nothing wrong with you. She's the one with the problem. As he spoke, he pointed at Jiyu Yundong. Jiyu Yundong looked innocent. What's wrong with me? I got Muzi myself. You still dare to say that you're doing this for Muzi? You clearly know that I'm on good terms with Imperial Physician Kui, yet you still want me to deceive him. Song Dejiang was exasperated. How can I face him in the future? Imperial Physician Song, you can't say that. Jiyu Yundong's expression was even more upright as she said in all seriousness, if it weren't for me, Imperial Physician Kui and his daughter would still be scolded by the neighbors. My plan was for you to lie, but this is a white lie. Look, Kui Lan has also been proven innocent. Since I've helped her, it's not too much for me to take Muzi as a reward, right? Song Dejiang couldn't win against her, but she was right. He snorted and turned his head. He happened to see Yang Ya beside him. He did not expect Yang Ya to agree with him and even look at Jiyu Yundong with slight envy and admiration. Actually, at first, Yang Ya did not know that Jiyu Yundong had thought of this method. She only thought that she and Knight Song had discussed it together. Only later did Knight Song tell her. Although Jiyu Yundong's main goal was by Muzi, her plan was to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Yang Yue had always stayed in the Yang residence and had never seen such an intelligent woman like Jiyu Yundong. Nightsong also noticed her gaze. Perhaps because they had a good chat yesterday, he knew more about Yang Yue. Previously, he wanted Yang Yue to learn from Nanny Chi. Nanny Chi was capable and could always influence Yang Yue subtly. However, he had forgotten that Nanny Chi was a servant, and Yang Yue was the master, but she was also a master who was not recognized by the elders of the Nai family. Therefore, Nanny Chi could not treat Yang Yue lightly. Instead, she was restrained and must watch her distance to her master. Now that she had met Jiyu Yundong, Nightsong felt that this was fate. Therefore, he whispered into Yang Ya's ear, "Do you think she's very powerful?" "Yeah." Nightsong smiled. "She did a lot of things. I'll tell you slowly in the future." Just the fact that she had escaped to Xuanhe Prefecture with her family was not something ordinary people could do. But if you want to see it with your own eyes, you can chat with her more. Sister Jiyu is going to open a milk tea shop in the capital. You've heard of it. It's the milk tea shop that Nai Shuang mentioned to me. When the time comes, you can follow her to take a look. Is that really possible? Jiyu Yundong naturally heard their conversation. Facing Yang Ya's expectant gaze, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, she smiled and nodded. Of course. But in the eyes of outsiders, you're still recuperating. It's better to go out later. Coincidentally, my shop needs to be renovated. I'll bring you to take a look when it's done. Yang Ya's eyes lit up slightly. She was a little excited and embarrassed as she said softly, "Thank you." Yang Yue had grown up without any friends because of her status, and Yang Ling Jiyu Yundong was the first. After making a deal, and seeing that Yang Yue still needed to rest, the few of them stood up and walked out. Song Dejiang held the Bai Muzi in his hand. "Leave this with me for now. I'll treat it first. I can't leave the capital now. Ask your mother to come to the capital sometime. I'll treat her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1358, Too many things in your brain. Jiyu Yundong looked at Bai Muzi and finally felt happy. There was finally hope of curing her mother's illness. This was a big matter that she had always taken to heart. Now, she could finally heave a sigh of relief. Nevertheless, I'll write a letter back, but if my mother comes, my father will definitely accompany her. There are many things to do at home, so I'm afraid it'll take some time to arrange it. It's impossible to reach the capital in a short period of time. Keep it for now. When my parents come, I'll look for you. Sure. Song Dejiang put away the herb and the few of them walked to the door. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Song Dejiang left the Nai residence first. Jiyu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan left after eating at the Nai residence. Bai Muzi's matter had come to an end. Next, Jiyu Yundong planned to renovate the shop. As for the matter with Marquis Huayin, Jiyu Yundong also wanted to sigh. According to Song Dejiang, he did not know much about Marquis Huayin. He only knew that Marquis Huayin was indeed quite powerful in the capital 20 years ago, but the emperor 20 years ago was the late emperor. The late emperor was muddle-headed and unreasonable, especially in recent years. A few years ago, Marquis Huayin had somehow offended the late emperor. Although the late emperor had not punished him, Marquis Huayin had slowly declined in the capital. Of course, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Even if it declined, it was still much better than ordinary families. Unfortunately, the descendants of Marquis Huayin in this generation didn't have much potential. They were all mediocre people who could listen to their superiors and work diligently, but they didn't have much talent to climb up. Otherwise, since they met the current emperor, as long as they had real talent, they would definitely be put in an important position. As for what happened in the Marquis Huayin's mansion, Song Dejiang did not know if any children had been lost 20 years ago. However, Song Dejiang promised that he would help them find out. From the looks of it, that was the only way. However, Jiyu Yundong still felt that she should find an opportunity to go to Marquis Huayin's mansion personally, or come into contact with some madam or old madam in the mansion to obtain information. Shao Qingyuan saw her sad face and couldn't help but sigh. He pulled her over and patted her head. Aren't you tired of having so many things in your head? We've just found by Muzi, and you're still busy renovating the shop. You also have to think about the Marquis Mansion's matters. You don't even give yourself time to rest. How tiring is that? Didn't we agree that there's no hurry for the Marquis Mansion's matters? Take it slow. Anyway, we're already in the capital, and they can't escape. Besides, don't you still have me? Don't you have a lot of things to do too? You still have to look for Song Dejiang tomorrow to learn medicine from him. Since Shao Qingyuan had come to the capital, it was rare for him to meet someone as skilled as Song Dejiang. Naturally, he had to learn some skills from him. Moreover, Song Dejiang liked to discuss medicine with Shao Qingyuan. He realized that Shao Qingyuan was especially smart in this aspect. Sometimes, when he went to a dead end, Shao Qingyuan would change his direction and give him ideas. Therefore, after Shao Qingyuan entered the palace, Song Dejiang refused to let him go. Even though they had only discussed for a day, both sides had gained a lot. Actually, part of the reason why Song Dejiang helped so readily this time was because of Shao Qingyuan. After all, he was the head of the Imperial Hospital. If he was exposed for doing such a thing, the consequences would be serious. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1359, Mrs. Yusong Dejiang had been on leave for the 2 days, so he naturally wanted to take this opportunity to continue discussing with Shao Qingyuan. Jiyu Yundong knew that he liked medicine, so she could not wait to take on everything. She wanted him to focus on learning and work hard to learn all of Song Dejiang's skills. After all, this was a rare opportunity. Shao Qingyuan knew what she was thinking, and his heart instantly ached. He couldn't help but tighten his grip on her. None of my matters are as important as yours. Jiyu Yundong smiled and kissed him. All right, I promise you. I'll take my time and do one thing at a time. First, before she could finish speaking, Shao Qingyuan pressed her down. First of all, we should have a child. The blanket was lifted. Before Jiyu Yundong could hide the shock on her face, it was covered by the blanket. The sky darkened, and the house was filled with spring. Jiyu Yundong woke up late the next day. Shao Qingyuan had already gone out. She could not help but rub her back. Suddenly, she felt lazy and did not want to get up. She did not want to go out. Anyway, Shao Qingyuan had told her to take it slow. He had worked so hard last night. Jiyu Yundong was a little indignant. She might as well rest at home today and not go anywhere. When Tong Shuidao came in, she saw her miss lying on her back on the bed, looking at the bed curtains above her head and thinking about life. She couldn't help but be curious. Miss, what's wrong? It's fine. I'm just a little lazy and don't want to get up. Tong Shuidao immediately went to her side and asked, then should I bring you food? Might as well. Tong Shuidao went out. Jiyu Yundong put on a cloak and walked to a shelf to rinse her mouth and wash her face. After washing up, she went back to bed. It was already cold in the capital at this time of the year. It was early October, and no one knew when it would snow in the capital. Not long after, Tong Shuidao brought in hot porridge and buns. Miss, when I went out this morning, I walked around the alley. I bought these buns at the entrance of the alley. I saw that the business there was especially good. I heard that it's an old business in Hatai Alley. It's been selling buns for many years. The skin is thin and the filling is big. Jiyu Yundong took it and tore open a corner. Instantly, gravy flowed out. The skin was indeed thin and the filling was big. It looked quite appetizing. Miss, is it good? Yes, it's not bad. Buy some again tomorrow. Tong Shuidao was overjoyed. Sure. Jiyu Yundong ate porridge and buns at the same time. After eating and drinking her fill, she wanted to cover herself with a blanket and listen to Tong Shuidao talk about the novelty of Hatai Alley. Unexpectedly, her plan to stay in bed for the entire day was foiled. Someone knocked on the door outside. Tong Shuidao ran to open the door and came back to say that it was the sister-in-law from next door. Jiyu Yundong could only ask Tong Shuidao to invite her to the central room to rest for a while. She quickly got up, dressed, and tidied herself up. When she reappeared in the central room, it had been quite a while. The sister-in-law next door was looking up at the environment of the house with a hint of envy in her eyes. Jiyu Yundong had heard from Tong Shuidao that the house next door was also a triple-entry house. However, that house was left behind by their ancestors. Now, their family was 3 generations in the same house, and all 20 to 30 people lived together. The old master only had 4 sons and a daughter. In addition, he had a few daughters-in-law and grandchildren from the next generation. They did not split up. Wouldn't the entire house seem crowded? The sister-in-law in front of her was the wife of the eldest son next door. Her surname was Yu. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1360, Wenzheng. The big tree. Jiyu Yundong smiled and went forward. You must be sister-in-law Yu. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Sister Jiyu, please don't say that. I came to disturb you without telling you in advance. Please don't take offense. How come? I saw that you guys had just moved in, so I came to take a look. I wanted to come over a few days ago, but I saw that you guys went out early in the morning and looked very busy, so I didn't come. You didn't go out today, so I made some bin buns at home for you to try. Don't despise them. Mrs. Yu pushed the basket on the table forward and smiled. Jiyu Yundong hurriedly smiled. How can I do that? I've troubled sister-in-law Yu. Sigh, we'll be neighbors in the future. There's no need to worry. I see that you've just arrived. If you need any help in the future, just look for us. Jiyu Yundong nodded. Then I won't stand on ceremony. There's no need to stand on ceremony. By the way, where are you guys from? Jiyu Yundong saw that she looked like she wanted to chat and felt a little helpless. However, the other party did not have any ill intentions. She also wanted to understand the situation in Hatai Alley, so she chatted with her. We came from the Xuanhe Prefecture. Xuanhe Prefecture? That's far away. It's your first time in the capital, so you have to be more careful. People will freeze to death in another 10 days or so. You have to prepare the charcoal first, or your lives won't be easy. All right, thank you for your reminder, sister-in-law. Mrs. Yu waved her hand. What kind of reminder is that? I was just saying. By the way, what are you guys doing in the capital? Is your man preparing to participate in the imperial examination? Jiyu Yundong's mouth twitched. You think too much. It was not the time to come to the capital to participate in the imperial examination. Moreover, Hatai Alley was lively and noisy. It was not suitable for students to buy a house and live there. Jiyu Yundong smiled. No, we're just here to open a small shop and do some small business. I see. Mrs. Yu nodded. She knew what to do. Then I have to tell you first. It's not easy to do business in the capital, especially opening a shop. It's best to find a backer. Otherwise, someone will find trouble. Right. Jiyu Yundong frowned. Mrs. Yu was right. Whether it was in Fengkai County or the Xuanhe Prefecture, she did have someone backing her up. Although the shop in the capital was also in partnership with Madame Dai, Nai Shuang, and the others, most of their forces were in the Xuanhe Prefecture. Moreover, there were too many high-ranking officials and nobles in the capital. Her milk tea shop was unique. Who knew how many people would covet it? She had no foundation in the capital. If she opened her business rashly, she would easily become a fat piece of meat in the eyes of others. Yes, she had to find a backer, and one that no one dared to provoke. Jiyu Yundong began to choose suitable candidates in her mind. In the end she thought of Wenzheng. Well, he was indeed a big tree here. According to Knight Song, Wenzheng had just arrived in the capital when he was promoted to the Assistant Minister of Official Personnel Affairs by the Emperor. In the past, Wenzheng was only a small official in the Hanlin Academy. His position immediately skipped a few levels when the new emperor ascended the throne, and it shocked many people. Of course, There were also people in the royal court who were unconvinced. However, Qin Wenzheng's name was already famous. The things he had done for the emperor in the past had been suppressed. Now that they had all been exposed, these incidents added up to more merit than many officials did in the royal court. If anyone was unconvinced, they could compete. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1361. Return gift. Moreover, some of the emperor's trusted aides actually knew Qin Wenzheng's identity and were naturally on his side. Actually, the rank of an official was secondary. The most important thing was that the current Qin Wenzheng was a favored minister in front of the emperor. Everyone could see how much the emperor valued him. His future was limitless. Those who were smart knew that they should prioritize befriending him. Therefore, to Jiyu Yundong, Qin Wenzheng was definitely the best candidate to be her backer. She just didn't know when he would return to the capital. Jiyu Yundong thought about it and quickly suppressed everything. Only then did she continue talking with Mrs. Yu. Mrs. Yu chatted until almost noon. She only went back when it was time to cook. She carried a basket of bin buns, and Jiyu Yundong asked Tong Shuidao to return the gift with the white sugar and canned food. This had always been her return gift. Mrs. Yu took a look and her face was filled with surprise. She had never seen canned food before, but white sugar was rare in the capital. However, they were almost never gifts, especially not the first meeting gift. Not only was this thing expensive, but it was also not easy to buy. This daughter-in-law of the Shao family was really generous. Mrs. Yu walked out of the Shao family's house in a daze. Jiyu Yundong finally heaved a sigh of relief. Tong Shuidao poured her a cup of hot tea and sighed. Sister-in-law Yu is really eloquent. Jiyu Yundong nodded in agreement. It was also a skill to be able to chat so well with the first time they met. However, she did know a lot from Mrs. Yu. The most important thing now was to prepare the charcoal fire, lest they wouldn't have a place to buy it when it got cold. Thus, in the afternoon, Jiyu Yundong brought Tong Shuidao out. The two of them went to the shop first. Last time, because of Mother Chen, they only stayed at the door for a moment and did not have the time to take a good look at the inside. Due to Muzi's matter, she did not have the time to come over these few days. Since she was out today, she could take a look at the situation of the shop. She would draw the blueprint later so that she could find someone to renovate it. Jiyu Yundong opened the door of the shop and saw someone peeking out from the shop next door. They might suspect that she was here to rent a house. Jiyu Yundong ignored them and strolled around the shop. Perhaps Mother Chen had planned to rent it out, so the shop was very clean. At this moment, there was only a little dust, and it did not look messy. The shop here was somewhat similar to the one in the Shuanhe prefecture, but this one was bigger. Another thing was that the position of the backyard was different. It would not make much of a difference if she renovated it later. Jiyu Yundong looked at the shop in front of her and then at the backyard. The backyard was originally for people to live in. It was also a huge project to set it up as private rooms. As for the second floor, Jiyu Yundong was very satisfied after looking at it. This floor was slightly higher and had a better view. It was also as spacious as the first floor and could receive many guests. Jiyu Yundong rubbed her chin and walked around the shop. Finally, she went back in satisfaction. On the way back, they strolled around Hatai Alley and found a few shops with relatively fair prices. After buying things like charcoals and furnaces and heaters to ward off the cold, the two of them slowly returned home. Seeing that it was still early, Jiyu Yundong took out a brush and paper and began to draw the renovation plan of the shop. Actually, there was no need to think too much about it. The interior decoration was similar to the Shuanhe prefecture's new tea pavilion. Jiyu Yundong felt that since it was a branch, it would be best if the shops were all of the same style. That way, they would have more characteristics. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1362. Carpenter Pang. Therefore, Jiyu Yundong quickly had some ideas in her mind. She drew quickly and steadily, and it did not take long for her to draw the rough blueprint. Then, She began to adjust and modify where she was not satisfied. After the painting was done, Shao Qingyuan happened to return. Jiyu Yundong quickly showed him the blueprint. How is it? Do you feel that there's anything that needs to be changed? There are even more madams and young ladies from aristocratic families in the capital. Most of them have their own circles or people whom they don't like. They care more about their status. They have clear ranks and might need too few rooms. Jiyu Yundong pondered for a moment. That was indeed the case. These madams of aristocratic families valued their privacy. They were still a little different from the Xuanhe prefecture. There were too many high-ranking officials and nobles in the capital. Jiyu Yundong pointed at the blueprint. So, the second floor should also be private rooms? Yeah. Jiyu Yundong was about to draw another one when Shao Qingyuan pulled her over. It's late. You should draw tomorrow. Let's eat first. Okay. Jiyu Yundong immediately put down the brush and paper in her hand. The next day, Shao Qingyuan didn't go out again. After Song Dejiang's rest days ended, he still had to be on duty at the Imperial Hospital. Jiyu Yundong sat in her room and started to paint again on the design of the second floor. In the afternoon, she went to look for a carpenter with Shao Qingyuan. She had been familiar with Uncle Feng. Now that she had to find an unfamiliar carpenter, she would probably have to explain what she had drawn again. The carpenter they found was introduced by Knight Song. His surname was Pang, and it was said that his craftsmanship was very good. He was also reliable and had a fair price. When Jiyu Yundong and the other man went over, Carpenter Pang was making a box cage. There was a lot of demand for carpenters these days, so there were also many people in this industry. Naturally, the competition was equally intense. According to Knight Song, Carpenter Pang's business was mediocre. He took on the work of his neighbors because he worked slowly and had a stubborn temper. One of his two disciples was mute, and the other was a taciturn person. But it had to be said that there was a reason for slow work to produce fine work. Carpenter Pang was slow because he was meticulous. If there was anything wrong, he would rather restart the work. He was very responsible when doing things. Even if you urged him to hurry, he would not hand it over casually. In Jiyu Yundong's opinion, this should be considered Carpenter Pang's obsessive-compulsive disorder. Therefore, no one came to look for him for urgent work. In addition, there were some competitors who did not like Carpenter Pang and ruined his reputation outside. He and his two disciples were people who worked hard and did not know how to explain. As time passed, business naturally decreased. Fortunately, his neighbors knew his personality and craftsmanship. Most of them were relieved to leave it to him. Carpenter Pang's current work was also recommended by his old clients. For example, Jiyu Yundong. Knight Song knew him because when he got married previously, he had seen an exquisite makeup box from Yang Ya. He knew that aunt who had gotten someone to get Carpenter Pang to make it a few years ago. After using it for a few years, the makeup box was still very sturdy and beautiful. Later on, Knight Song also asked Carpenter Pang to make a few things. They were all very good. This time, Jiyu Yundong wanted to renovate the shop, so he directly introduced him to her. Carpenter Pang was in his 30s and was not good with words. When he saw Jiyu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan enter, he quickly stood up and let them sit. Then, that was it. He didn't want to pour them a glass of water. He turned around and continued to make his box. Jiyu Yundong had heard that he had gotten married a few years ago. Later, his wife had passed away and he did not even have a child. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1363. Slow work. It was not that no one had tried to matchmake him all these years, but when they heard that his two disciples had no parents and had to rely on him to raise them, they all retreated. Moreover, Carpenter Pang did not seem to be interested in getting married and having children, so he had been single until now. However, to him, his two disciples were equivalent to his biological sons. Fortunately, although his two disciples were also taciturn, they still knew how to treat their guests. They hurriedly poured water for them and continued to stand at the side to help Carpenter Pang. Jiyu Yundong watched from the side for a moment and knew that Carpenter Pang was indeed the kind of person who was neither arrogant nor rash. He was very stable. Jiyu Yundong explained the purpose of her visit. I want to renovate a shop. It has 2 floors and a courtyard at the back. It's at Jinlan Street. The shop is a little big, so it might take some time. I wonder if Master Pang can take on this job. Carpenter Pang was stunned for a moment. A shop? And it was a 2-story one? Before he could say anything, the 2 disciples behind him looked at Jiyu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan excitedly. This was a big job. If they did it well, the payment this time should not be low. Actually, they had very little work to do now, especially when the weather was cold. Their business was even less. When the box in their master's hand was ready, they would have nothing to do. They did not expect such a huge job to suddenly come. How could they not be excited? His 2 disciples looked at Carpenter Pang expectantly. Carpenter Pang quickly came back to his senses. His eyes were also slightly glowing, and he rubbed his hands uncomfortably. After pausing for a moment, he still reminded them in advance, I can accept the job, but I'll tell you the truth. I work slowly, especially for such a big shop. I have to take a look first and discuss with you what's appropriate. I can't deliver work in a short period of time. It doesn't matter. As long as the work is done well, it can take as long as needed. If it's convenient for Master Pang, I can take you to see the shop now. I've already drawn out how to renovate the shop. We can sit down and talk about it later. Carpenter Pang paused and glanced at the box cage in his hand. This box was actually already done. It could be handed over after a little polishing. He would continue working when he came back tonight. He could send it to the client tomorrow morning. Hence, he stood up. All right. I'll go take a look at the shop now. Carpenter Pang got up, took off his apron, and went inside to wash his hands and face. He then followed Jiyu Yundong out. His 2 disciples hurriedly followed. On the way, Carpenter Pang learned from Jiyu Yundong that they had been introduced by Night Song. Carpenter Pang still had some impression of Night Song. He was quite happy and grateful. When he arrived at Jinlan Street and saw the 2-story shop, Carpenter Pang realized that it was even bigger than he had imagined. He brought his 2 disciples around and circled it twice before returning to the shop in front. When he saw Jiyu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan talking, he quickly went forward excitedly. Young Master Shao, Madam Shao, well take on this job. Jiyu Yundong nodded and asked them to sit. Then, she took out the blueprint. In that case, I'll tell Master Pang about the situation of the shop. Okay, go ahead. My shop will sell milk tea. It's similar to a tea house, but it's different from ordinary tea houses. My tea house is specially used to receive women, so the decorations inside are different from other shops. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1364. Accepting the job specializing in receiving women? This was the first time Carpenter Pang had heard of this. He felt that it was very novel. Jiyu Yundong pointed at the blueprint. This is what the interior of the shop looks like. Master Pang, take a look. As expected, Carpenter Pang lowered his head and his eyes immediately lit up. This blueprint was too clear. Almost at first glance, he could imagine what the shop would become in the future. Carpenter Pang had also renovated shops in the past. Most of the time, it was the client who told him where to add cabinets and boxes. No one had ever drawn such a detailed blueprint to tell him the final result. It was just that there were some things that he could not understand, but Jiyu Yundong would explain. There were even some data on it. Carpenter Pang looked at the blueprint lovingly. Even his 2 disciples standing behind him could not help but swallow their saliva. After introducing the renovations to the shop in front and the courtyard at the back, it was finally time for the situation on the 2nd floor. Carpenter Pang frowned slightly when he saw the 2nd floor. Jiyu Yundong knew how to draw, but she did not know much about architectural design. In the past, when she was building a house, Feng Daning would tell her how to modify it. He would tell her which parts were unreasonable and what could not be done, or if the data was too idealistic. She would slowly modify what problems might arise. Jiyu Yundong had to listen to Carpenter Pang's professional opinion. As expected, Carpenter Pang shook his head at some places on the second floor. To make the second floor look like private rooms, the project was a little big. Many places had to be demolished and rebuilt, so Jiyu Yundong's blueprint was not very accurate. There was no other way. Jiyu Yundong handed the blueprint to Carpenter Pang. How about this? I'll tell you how many rooms I want on the second floor and how the layout is. Master Pang, you can decide for yourself after taking the measurements. How about that? Carpenter Pang was stunned. Is that appropriate? Yes, of course. Carpenter Pang looked at Shao Qingyuan again. After all, in their eyes, Shao Qingyuan was the head of the family. Shao Qingyuan nodded. Listen to her. Carpenter Pang was relieved. Jiyu Yundong and Carpenter Pang talked about some details. Both parties signed a contract and confirmed that Master Pang would start work the next day. After Jiyu Yundong paid the deposit and the key to the shop, the group left. Now that the renovation was done, the next step was to recruit people. This gave Jiyu Yundong a headache. In the Xuanhe prefecture, Madame Dai and Nai Shuang had taken care of recruitment matters. She had only arranged for 2 people. Now that she was in the capital, she was really unfamiliar with the place. Where could she recruit people? Especially since the milk tea shop was a novel business, she was worried about hiring ordinary people to work in the shop. It seemed that she could only buy some. The others were fine. They could be bought for training and employment. It was just that the shopkeeper was not easy to find. Jiyu Yundong decided to ask for Madame Je's opinion when she went to the Qin residence tomorrow. A few days ago, the Qin family closed their doors and refused guests, so Jiyu Yundong did not disturb them for the time being. Yesterday, she asked Tong Shuidao to send a card to the Qin family to confirm that she would come tomorrow. Jiyu Yundong did not know much about the rules of the wealthy families in the capital. It was only when she mentioned it to Yang Ya 2 days ago that she remembered that she should send the card first so that she would not have missed it. Shao Qingyuan knew that she was going to the Qin residence, so he turned around and asked her, "Shall I go with you tomorrow?" "No need. Qin Wenzheng isn't back yet. You'll just sit there and do nothing even if you go. How boring would that be?" Shao Qingyuan thought about it and agreed, so he didn't mention it again. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1365, I want this shop. The next morning, Jiyu Yundong brought Tong Shuidao directly to the Qin residence. Unexpectedly, not long after they left, Carpenter Pang's disciple called Pang Shan hurriedly ran over and knocked on the door. Shao Qingyuan was reading a medical book. Song Dejiang had given it to him the day before yesterday and asked him to read it first before discussing it with him. Shao Qingyuan was very interested in this medical book. Hearing the knock on the door, Shao Wen immediately went to open it. Pang Shan, who was at the door, staggered and almost fell in. Shao Wen quickly supported him and asked, "Why are you so flustered? What happened?" Pang Shan swallowed his dry throat and said in a panic, Someone came to the shop to cause trouble. Master is not allowed to work." Shao Wen frowned and quickly brought him to look for Shao Qingyuan. When Shao Qingyuan heard this, he narrowed his eyes slightly, put down the medical book, and walked towards the door. "Let's go to the shop to take a look." Shao Wen and Pang Shan hurriedly followed. Fortunately, they were not too far from Jinlan Street and arrived not long after. At this moment, there were already a few people poking their heads out and pointing at the entrance of 68, Jinlan Street. At this moment, there were 2 groups of people confronting each other in the shop. On one side was Master Pang and his disciple, and on the other side, it looked like they were deliberately looking for trouble with 5 or 6 people. The leader was dressed well, like a young master from a rich family. Behind him were his servants. At this moment, this young master-like person sized up Carpenter Pang from head to toe. His eyes were filled with disdain as he said condescendingly, "I'll say it again. I have bought this shop. I'll naturally get someone to repair it later. You guys should leave." Carpenter Pang's face turned red. He was not good with words to begin with, and this disciple beside him was mute. However, he was the one who signed the contract. How could he leave so easily? Young Master Tang, I've already discussed it with the boss. I don't care if you've discussed it or not. Anyway, I'll leave my words here. If you continue to work here, I won't be polite to you. Think about it yourself. Should you leave now, or should I get someone to throw you out? Young Master Tang was also very unhappy. He had long taken a fancy to this shop. However, he did not expect that he would act too late. Just a day later, the shop was bought by a woman surnamed Nai. He had asked around. That woman surnamed Nai was not from the capital. Her family was in Xuanhe Prefecture and she was rich. That was why she came to the capital to buy a shop. Her only backer in the capital was her brother, Knight Song, who was a 7th grade official. It was just a 7th rank official. Young Master Tang didn't fancy him. After all, he wasn't someone without a backer. He even felt that it was the Nai family's honor that he had taken a fancy to this shop. Therefore, young Master Tang came to look for her twice and said that he wanted to buy it. Although he had lowered the price, he was not bullying others, right? However, that woman surnamed Nai did not agree. Young Master Tang felt that she did not know what was good for her and wanted to use other methods. But at this moment, that woman actually left behind this shop and ran back to the Xuanhe Prefecture. Young Master Tang thought that Nai Shuang was afraid of offending him, but she didn't want to sell the shop, so she simply escaped reality. As a result, this shop had been empty. Young Master Tang's temper even rose. If you have the ability, just leave it here. I'll keep an eye on you and see when you will return to open the shop. If you dare to open the shop, I will dare to come and find trouble. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1366, 100,000 Taels. Young Master Tang did not look for Knight Song and just watched over the shop for half a year. Unexpectedly, a servant had come to report some time ago that a mother of the Yang family was planning to rent out the shop. However, after a day, she said that she was not renting anymore. Young Master Tang was confused when the shop opened. A carpenter began to repair the shop. They were clearly planning to do business. Could it be that the woman surnamed Nai had returned? Alright, she had finally stopped hiding after half a year. Young Master Tang led his men over. Unexpectedly, when he asked, Carpenter Pang said that the owner of the shop was a couple. The male owner's surname was Shao and he did not know any woman with the surname Nai. Young Master Tang felt that Nai Shuang might have secretly sold the shop. Alright, since she wanted to sell it, why didn't she sell it to him back then? Just as he was thinking, there was suddenly a commotion outside. 3 men walked in one after another. Carpenter Pang turned around and saw that it was Shao Qingyuan. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Young Master Shao. Shao Qingyuan nodded and looked at young Master Tang. Young Master Tang also looked at him. He felt that the other party's gaze was so cold that he could not help but take a step back. The servant behind him hurriedly supported him and asked softly, Young Master, are you cold? Get lost. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Young Master Tang turned around and hit his head. Then, he secretly took 2 deep breaths and looked at Shao Qingyuan again, as if the person who had retreated just now was not him. He sized up Shao Qingyuan. Yes, he didn't know him. Are you the owner of this shop? Who are you? Shao Qingyuan also looked at him. My surname is Tang. Tang Qijing. Young Master Tang raised his chin slightly. I've never seen you before. You're not from the capital, right? I'm not. Tang Qijing was instantly relieved. When he saw the murderous aura on this person just now, his heart was beating like a drum. He pointed at the shop and said, I'll buy this shop. Name a price. Shao Qingyuan admired his wife. Why was it that every time she took a fancy to a shop, someone wanted to snatch it? Oh, that's not right. Her wife did not buy this shop. So this person was provoked by Nai Shuang. Shao Qingyuan saw his high and mighty appearance and thought that he must have something to rely on. But 100,000 taels, he said slowly. Tang Qijing was stunned and almost choked on his own saliva. How much did you say? 100,000 taels, Shao Qingyuan repeated. If you pay 100,000 taels, this shop will be yours. Have you gone crazy from poverty? 100,000 taels? It was more than enough to buy 10 or 20 shops. He actually asked for an exorbitant price. Was he toying with him? When others heard the conversation at the door, someone quickly laughed. After being glared at by the servants behind Tang Qijing, those people immediately lowered their heads and covered their mouths. Unexpectedly, Shao Qingyuan nodded at Tang Qijing. I've been a little poor recently. My family bought a new house and some assets, so I'm a little tight on money, so I didn't even have time to buy servants. The price of this shop is 100,000 taels. It should be enough. Tang Qijing. CKU. He was so angry that he laughed. Do you think that's possible? Who the hell will buy your shop for 100,000 taels? Since you think it's impossible, why are you still here? Shao Qingyuan's face turned cold. Tang Qijing felt that the other party was provoking him and did not take him seriously at all. Okay, you're messing with me. He pointed at him and trembled with anger. He immediately said to the servants behind him, smash this place. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1367. Could he be Tichi Shao Qingyuan? The servants were about to make a move. Don't, you can't smash it. Carpenter Pang hurriedly wanted to make a move. Although they had just started work, they had brought a lot of wood over. It would be a loss to smash it. However, how could the servants of the Tang family listen to him? One of them kicked a stool at the side. However, just as he was about to walk forward, someone suddenly blocked his way. Shao Wen suddenly grabbed his hand, turned around, and flipped forward. This person fell to the ground. Seeing this, the servants of the Tang family instantly surrounded him. The four of them fought against Shao Wen alone, but they actually did not have the upper hand. Tang Qijing instantly felt that things were a little tricky. He regretted bringing those servants along today. He should have brought the two skilled ones along. Now that the four of them could not even beat one person, if they lost later, where would he put his face? Tang Qijing's eyes darted to Shao Qingyuan's face. Then, he realized that this murderous aura and bulging muscles might be stronger. He immediately gave up. A wise man submits to circumstances. He understood. Hence, Tang Qijing shouted, "Stop, come back." The four of them already felt that they were going to lose. When they heard this order, they retreated without a word. One of them did not retreat in time and was kicked down by Shao Wen. He quickly got up and continued to run to Tang Qijing's side. Shao Wen was speechless. He also silently returned behind Shao Qingyuan. Tang Qijing exhaled and pointed at Shao Qingyuan. All right, you're quite bold. If you have the ability, tell me your name. Shao Qingyuan was speechless. Was he stupid? What? You don't have balls? You don't even dare to say your name. Are you afraid that he'll take revenge on you later? At this moment, even though he knew that it was a provocation, Shao Qingyuan still said, Shao Qingyuan. All right, Shao Qingyuan, right? Just you wait. Then, Tang Qijing hurriedly led the few of them to the door. However, not long after he walked out, he suddenly stopped and frowned. He turned around and asked, what did he say his name was just now? Shao Qingyuan. The servant behind him also reacted. Young master, could he be that Shao Qingyuan? Tang Qijing shook his head. How can it be so coincidental? It must be someone with the same name. But what if? Didn't they say that Shao Qingyuan is a kind person who helps the world? Which kind person doesn't look benevolent? Is he benevolent? The servant thought for a moment and felt that what the young master said made sense. However, he quickly shook his head and still felt that it was a little suspicious. But young master, Shao Qingyuan is from Xuanhe Prefecture, and the owner of this shop is also from Xuanhe Prefecture. Isn't this a little too coincidental? Moreover, his age matches. Tang Qijing's expression was a little dark. If it was really Shao Qingyuan, It did not seem appropriate for him to find fault with him. "Young master, why don't we give up on this shop? Back then, you wanted to buy this shop to destroy the Chen family's shop opposite. Isn't the Chen family's shop opposite not doing much business now without you doing anything?" Tang Qijing thought about it and felt that it made sense. He looked at the servant behind him in agreement. "You're right. I'm busy. That shop is no longer worth my attention. Moreover, I don't think the feng shui of this street is good. Look at the Chen family. They've only been open for half a year and they're already in this state. Wouldn't I be at a disadvantage if I buy it?" Of course, of course." The servant nodded repeatedly. However, after taking a few steps, he asked, "Young master, should we tell the royal prince that Shao Qingyuan came to the capital? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1368, Meeting Madame Ge again. Tang Qijing frowned. The royal prince, Yi Zilan, was the descendant of an aristocratic family who had said that he had by Muzi and asked Shao Qingyuan to be his servant for a year. He thought for a moment and shook his head. "Forget it. We're not sure if this person is that Shao Qingyuan. If we make a mistake later, the young royal prince will think that I tricked him and skin me alive. Besides, he was not familiar with the royal prince. It was better not to get involved in the matter between that man and Shao Qingyuan." Tang Qijing looked back at the shop and left in a hurry with his subordinates. Only when they were far away did Shao Qingyuan let Carpenter Pang continue. Carpenter Pang was a little worried and asked him, "Will young Master Tang come again?" "No. That Tang guy came to find trouble and looked like he was showing off. However, when he saw that he could not take advantage of the situation, he immediately left. Although he was a little cowardly, it was obvious that he was not a rash person. He would probably figure out the stranger's identity before taking action. As for after the investigation, he probably wouldn't come again." However, the others didn't know that the shopkeeper of the shop next door quickly came over and said to Shao Qingyuan, "Young master, do you know who young Master Tang was just now?" "Who is it?" Shao Qingyuan really didn't know him. That person said mysteriously, "His mother is the cousin of Marquis Huayin and has Marquis Huayin backing her. If you hit his people directly, he will definitely settle scores with you later." "Marquis Huayin?" Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect Tang Qijing to be related to Marquis Huayin. Shao Qingyuan fell silent for a moment. The shopkeeper who spoke saw his worried expression and immediately shook his head. He didn't say anything else and turned around to leave. Shao Wen walked to Shao Qingyuan's side and asked in a low voice, "Young master, will everything be all right?" "It's fine." Shao Qingyuan comforted Carpenter Pang and the other two. He told them to do whatever they had to and not worry about anything else. Then, he brought Shao Wen back to his house in Hetai Alley. Shao Wen saw that his young master did not seem to care at all. He picked up the medical book again and read it. At this moment, Jiyu Yundong had already entered the Qin residence. Madame Ge was very happy to see her. She pulled her and said, "You've been in the capital for a few days. Why are you only here now? The guests I rejected at the door are others. I couldn't wait to welcome you." As he spoke, a small figure ran over from outside. Qin Anning rushed into Jiyu Yundong's arms eagerly. "Sister Jiyu, I haven't seen you in a long time. I miss you so much." "Has Anning grown taller?" Grinning, Qin Anning spun around in front of her and asked, "Don't I look prettier too?" "Yes, you look even better." When Madame Ge heard this, she could not help but hold her forehead. "How can you be so thick-skinned?" Qin Anning pouted and said to Jiyu Yundong, "Sister Jiyu, the capital is so boring. I want to go back to Fengkai County. I think you're used to being wild." Previously, in Fengkai County, Qin Wenzheng had taken in many students. Although there was a difference between men and women, these people were still fellow disciples to Anning. Occasionally, they would bring her to play and take good care of her. Qin Wenzheng wouldn't restrain her either. After she went to Yongfu village, she couldn't even stay in the house and ran out every other day. However, it was different in the capital, especially since Qin Wenzheng's current identity was an important minister in the court. Anning's every move was seen by others. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1369, Your Shao Qingyuan is enough. Madame Ge wanted Qin Anning to learn some rules and etiquette, but Qin Wenzheng did not care. He doted on his daughter very much and only said that everything was fine as long as she was happy. There was no need to be so rigid like the other women from aristocratic families. It was tiring to look at them. However, Madame Ge felt that if she did not teach Anning now, she would definitely be criticized in the future. What if Anning could not stand those rumors at that time and her reputation was ruined? Would Anning be happy then? Madame Ge and Qin Wenzheng had a disagreement over their daughter's education, but they could not determine who was right and who was wrong. Madame Ge only complained to Jiyu Yundong. She would not spout nonsense in front of others. Jiyu Yundong did not know what to do. She did not have any children. Her younger siblings were all raised independently. Moreover, their environment and status were different, so she could not give any suggestions. She lowered her head slightly and looked at the lively little girl in front of her. She smiled and said, "I'm afraid you won't be able to return to Fengkai County in a short period of time." Anning sighed and said worriedly like a little adult, "Things don't go well in this world. It's really too difficult for me." But Jiyu Yundong was amused. Seeing her, Jiyu Yundong could not help but think of the children at home. She had already written a letter and sent a pigeon back. If her parents came to the capital, Keek would probably follow them. However, Yunshu and Yuanji had to study, so they might not come. Madame Ge pointed at Anning. "All right, I'll talk to your sister Jiyu. Go play first." Oh. Qin Anning could not bear to part with Jiyu Yundong. However, although she was lively and active, she was also a sensible person. Knowing that they had serious matters to discuss, she bid them farewell and returned to her courtyard. The Qin family's house had 5 courtyards. Qin Wenzheng had made so many contributions to the imperial court. As soon as he arrived, the emperor of the capital gave him a residence, and it was an especially good location. Jiyu Yundong had just walked over and realized that besides the few people they had brought from Fengkai County, they had brought a few more families of servants. They were all quietly doing their jobs and tidying up the huge mansion. Jiyu Yundong was so envious that her eyes turned red. Why was it so difficult for her to buy a 3-yard house? She sighed in grief and indignation before talking about opening her shop. "Last time, Naishuang bought a shop. I came over this time to renovate it. When the time comes, I will choose a good day to open it." Madame Ge's interest was immediately piqued. Milk tea shop, new tea pavilion. She had been to the new tea pavilion in the Xuanhe prefecture, but only once. After all, her family was in Fengkai County, so it was impossible for her to often go to the Xuanhe prefecture to drink milk tea. However, after that one visit, Madame Ge started to miss it. Now that she heard that the capital was also going to have it, she was immediately a little excited. Seeing this, Jiyu Yundong immediately smiled at her. "Yes, it's a milk tea shop. Are you interested in cooperation?" Seeing her ulterior motive, Madame Ge could not help but laugh. "You already have 3 bosses. You have money and ability. Why do you still need me to cooperate?" "Of course I do," Jiyu Yundong said matter-of-factly. "I need your identity. If others knew that Madame Qin is a partner of this shop, who would dare to cause trouble?" Madame Ge was stunned for a moment before she smiled. "Why do you need my identity? Your Shao Qingyuan is enough, right? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1370, Shao Qingyuan's reputation. Jiyu Yundong was confused. "Brother Shao?" Seeing her like this, Madame Ge suddenly understood. "It seems that you still don't know your Shao Qingyuan's reputation in the capital." Jiyu Yundong really did not know. She subconsciously straightened her back and hurriedly asked, "Tell me, what happened? What happened to my brother Shao's reputation?" Mrs. Ge coughed lightly and took a sip of water before slowly talking about some things she had heard not long ago. Very few people had seen Shao Qingyuan, But most people in the capital, especially the influential families, knew this name. The cowpox vaccination method was a very great achievement. To a country where many people died every year because of smallpox, this was an invention that transcended eras. Whether it was the emperor or others who were born in this dynasty and witnessed it with their own eyes, it was a very deep mark in history. In fact, it would have been fine if that was all. There were countless achievements in this world, and not everyone would be so famous. Most of them became famous after death and were only remembered by the world. However, this matter had been specially promoted by the emperor. Shao Qingyuan, a country bumpkin who was not even a doctor, actually dared to personally inoculate the prince. This courage, boldness, and fearlessness of death really impressed some people. The emperor wanted to promote this method and establish his prestige for the prince. He wanted his name to go down in history, so he secretly got someone to write a few poems to praise this matter. As the greatest contributor, Shao Qingyuan naturally could not avoid such publicity. Moreover, because of his identity, he attracted the resonance and admiration of many citizens. Look, an ordinary person like him had left his name in history because of this matter. The emperor had placed him in an important position, and even the prince was grateful to him. If they worked hard, they might have such achievements in the future, right? Then some scholars began to glorify him. Some tea houses wrote books about his deeds, and some wanted to write biographies about him for future generations to read. Jiyu Yundong had sweat when she heard that. She suddenly thought of her publicity in the Xuanhe prefecture. It was really similar. But she really didn't expect Shao Qingyuan's reputation in the capital to be like this. Madame Ji smiled and said, "You know now, right? If others know that the shop belongs to Shao Qingyuan who invented the cowpox vaccination method, who do you think will dare to come and find trouble with you? Although your husband doesn't have any power, he has a reputation. Whoever dares to find trouble with your shop will probably be scolded as ungrateful. There are so many aristocratic families and nobles in the capital. Most of them care about their reputation. Who would carry such a blame? At least, for the time being, no one would go and get into trouble. As for when Shao Qingyuan's deeds slowly faded in the future, would they still dare to? Madame Ji felt that with Shao Qingyuan and Jiyu Yundong's abilities, they would have grown up. Anyone who came to find trouble with them would be asking for trouble. Jiyu Yundong could not help but want to laugh. Should she be grateful to the emperor? If he hadn't worked so hard to promote and add fuel to the fire, it wouldn't have had such an effect. She thought for a moment and suddenly asked, "Brother Shao will be recorded in history. What about me? I made the white sugar. It's very popular in the capital now. It's very rare. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1371. A village woman surnamed Jiyu Yundong was a little excited at the thought of it. Being a historical celebrity was so exciting. However, Madame Ji laughed dryly and lowered her head slightly to take a sip of tea. After a while, she said, "Perhaps there will be records." A Jiyu woman in a village in Fengkai County? Jiyu Yundong was speechless. Could a historian be a good person? Was a woman not worthy of having a name? Jiyu Yundong was not in a good mood. She took a big sip of tea in frustration. However, she also knew that the world was like this now. There might not even be the word Jiyu. Unless you were especially famous, even a noble daughter of the royal family and the empress of a country would only have a title and a surname, let alone a commoner like her. Forget it. Jiyu Yundong did not care much about leaving her name in history. She just wanted to live well now. Now that she knew about Shao Qingyuan, she had an idea. "Nevertheless, I still want to work with you." Madame Ji was a little surprised. "Why?" "Brother Shao's reputation will prevent us from trouble, but the milk tea shop is targeted at rich madams and young ladies. Someone has to take the lead. These people won't spend at my milk tea shop for Brother Shao, but with you around, as the assistant minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs and the wife of the emperor's favorite minister, you will definitely attract many customers." Madame Ji was enlightened. "You're asking me to help you promote it?" "Actually, this is also one reason. There's another reason. I've discussed it with Madame Dai and Nai Shuang. We'll definitely open shops in other prefectural cities in the future. However, our energy is limited after all. It's impossible for us to have connections in every prefectural city. Therefore, in the future, we'll find a suitable person to cooperate with when we open shops in any prefectural city. Jiyu Yundong suddenly had this idea after seeing Duan Wan in Wanqing Prefecture. However, at that time, she only thought of working with Duan Wan in Wanqing Prefecture and did not think about the capital. It was Madame Dai who suggested it when she sent the letter back to them. Their shop was different from ordinary shops. New Tea Pavilion targeted women, rich women. However, such a client group needed someone to take the lead, especially someone with a certain status. Madame Dai and the others had such an effect in the Xuanhe Prefecture, but they could not do it elsewhere. It was impossible for them to find a capable shopkeeper like others who opened shops. Even if a shop opened by an unknown foreigner was novel and well advertised, these madams and young ladies might not buy it. On the other hand, some women in the market would come in to take a look out of curiosity, but this way, their target group would be wrong. New Tea Pavilion didn't need everyone in the prefectural city to know, but it needed everyone in a certain circle to know. The Xuanhe Prefecture had leaders like Madame Dai and Nai Shuang, which was why it was so popular. The Wanqing Prefecture had Duan Wan. Although she was not the daughter of an official, she also interacted with the daughters of officials. The Duan family's reputation in the Wanqing Prefecture was enough. In the capital, Jiyu Yundong felt that the Ji family was very good. Jiyu Yundong did not need the Ji family to do anything. It was just a name. She would give the shop in the capital a monthly boost. It was mutually beneficial. Because of this, Madame Dave and Nai Shuang felt that they could compress their shares. After all, they were only providing money. They could not help with anything else. When Madame Ji heard her thoughts, she was a little tempted. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1372. You came at the right time. As someone who had seen the Xuanhe Prefecture milk tea shop popular with her own eyes, Madame Ji knew that once the fire in the capital was lit, the effect would definitely be doubled. She had not been in the capital for long. Wenzheng had bought a few shops in the capital a long time ago, and her family did not lack money now. But who would complain about having too much money? She still had a daughter now. Looking at Anning, she did not know what kind of person she would marry in the future. As her mother, she naturally had to prepare more dowry for her. When the girl was married, she didn't need to panic when she had money. After hesitating for a moment, Madame Ji could not help but nod. Jiyu Yundong immediately signed a contract with her. Although they were on good terms, even brothers had to settle accounts clearly. With the contract, if Qin Wenzheng did not agree in the future, it would not be good to go back on his word, right? Jiyu Yundong happily put away the contract. Madame Ji also happily put the contract into a box and locked it. Then, the two of them began to discuss the opening of the shop. Before the shop opens, I'll send an invitation to the madams and young ladies in the capital to our residence as guests. We've been in the capital for so long, but we've never invited guests. When the time comes, take out some new things like milk tea, double-skinned milk, fried chicken, and pastries for everyone to try. These people will definitely like them. Jiyu Yundong thought so too. This was a rare opportunity for publicity. At the mention of the banquet, Jiyu Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly and said, "Then can you do me a favor and invite the Madam and Miss of Marquis Huayan's family?" Marquis Huayan's family? Madame Ji said, "Who do you want to see in Marquis Huayan's family?" Yes. Jiyu Yundong did not hide it. Brother Shao's background might be related to Marquis Huayan. Madame Ji was surprised. Of course, she knew that Shao Qingyuan's background was still a mystery. Previously, Qin Wenzheng had told her that they had suspected the Dao family. Later, they confirmed that the third young master of the Dao family was not Shao Qingyuan, and there were no more clues. Qin Wenzheng had also helped to keep an eye out, but they did not expect it to be related to Marquis Huayan in the capital. Yes, the surname of Marquis Huayan was Shao. Madame Ji hurriedly said, It's naturally not a problem for me to invite Marquis Huayan's family. However, if you want to know Shao Qingyuan's background, I'm afraid it won't work. You don't know, but Marquis Huayan's family has been keeping a low profile in recent years and doesn't like to stand out. In addition, Marquis Huayan is now mediocre. Although he has the title of Marquis, he has received an idle position and doesn't have any real power in his hands. His younger brother is the same. There are two smart people in the younger generation, but they're only elementary scholars now. Therefore, the old madam and the marquis's wife don't like to go out. However, the heir apparent's wife likes fun. If we invite them to a banquet, the people who go out will probably be from the heir apparent's generation. The younger generation was only a few years older than Jiyu Yundong. It was impossible for them to know about Shao Qingyuan's background 20 years ago. Even if they came, she would not be able to find out anything. Although the daughter-in-law of Marquis Huayan was eloquent, she had only married into the Marquis mansion for 6 to 7 years. Jiyu Yundong frowned slightly. It made sense. Although the Qin family was currently popular, the Qin family did not have an old madam. It was impossible for other families with higher seniority to come over. Seeing her conflicted expression, Madame Ji smiled and said, "But you came at the right time. Although we can't invite the old madam and the others of Marquis Huayan over, we can go to the Marquis mansion." Jiyu Yundong's eyes lit up and he hurriedly asked, "What do you mean? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1373, Person Drenched in Sweat. Madame Ji smiled and said, "Previously, I received an invitation from the Marquis mansion saying that the plum blossoms in the backyard of Marquis Huayan's family had bloomed and invited everyone to admire the flowers. Originally, I thought that I wasn't familiar with them and wanted to reject them. Now that you want to go to the Marquis mansion, this is an opportunity. Flowers could be admired any time. They were just looking for an opportunity to hold a banquet." In the short time that Madame Ji had been in the capital, many ladies from aristocratic families had held banquets. She had received countless invitations, and Madame Ji had only gone twice. Marquis Huayan's family's heir's wife was relatively late. It was really because the old madam and the others didn't like this kind of liveliness, but they still had to socialize. Moreover, Marquis Huayan's family had been glorious in the early years, so their plum blossom forest was really big and beautiful. There were indeed many madams and young ladies who went for the beautiful scenery. Jiyu Yundong immediately smiled. What a coincidence. When is the date? 2 days later. 2 days later, Jiyu Yundong's eyes lit up. All right, I'll go. Then, Madame Ji gave Jiyu Yundong some instructions and told her about the situation in Marquis Huayan's residence. She asked her to stay for a meal before sending her out. Jiyu Yundong only realized something after leaving the Qin residence and getting into the carriage. She had forgotten to ask the Ji family if they had a candidate for the female shopkeeper. However, after thinking about it, she decided to forget it. In any case, they would meet again in 2 days. When the time came, it would be the same if she asked. When she returned home, she saw Shao Qingyuan leaning against the recliner reading a book. When Shao Wen was not around, Jiyu Yundong sent Tong Shuidao away. She walked over and laid on him. She hugged his waist and said, "I heard a lot about you when I went to the Qin family today." Shao Qingyuan quickly hugged her to prevent her from falling. When he heard this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "Me? What is it? So you're so famous in the capital. Your reputation seems to be very useful." Shao Qingyuan put down his book and propped himself up slightly. He carried her and sat on his lap. "It's all untrue. Outsiders say I have a kind face." Jiyu Yundong burst out laughing. She held his face and looked left and right. After a while, she nodded. "You do look kind." Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes, pressed her head down, and kissed her. This girl was very bad. She even dared to tease him. Jiyu Yundong was overjoyed. She leaned into his arms and talked. She told him about her cooperation with Madame Ji in the Qin residence and also about going to Marquis Huayan's residence in 2 days. Speaking of Marquis Huayan's family, Shao Qingyuan was silent for a moment. He thought of Tang Qijing, whom he had met in the shop today. This person's mother seemed to be the cousin of Marquis Huayin. Tang Qijing. Hearing this name, Jiyu Yundong nodded, indicating that she would remember it. Shao Qingyuan looked at her and said, "I'll go with you in 2 days and wait for you outside the mansion." Unfortunately, only women were invited. Jiyu Yundong smiled and pinched his face. "Are you worried?" "Yeah. All right, then wait for me outside." If there were any clues, she could tell him immediately. After all, it was about his background. She hoped that she would gain something from this trip to the Marquis mansion. Jiyu Yundong wanted Shao Qingyuan to reunite with his family as soon as possible. 2 days later, Jiyu Yundong and the others took a carriage to the Qin residence early in the morning. Then, they met up with Madame Ge and headed to Marquis Huayan's residence. However, not long after they left, a carriage hurriedly entered Hetai Alley and stopped in front of the Shao family's house not long after. Then, the coachman turned around and helped the sweating person out of the carriage. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Ads by Pubrev Chapter 1374. Something urgent. After the people in the carriage got out, the coachman hurriedly went forward and knocked on the door. Instead, after knocking for a long time, there was no response. The coachman turned around and looked at the person behind him. Song Dejiang frowned when he heard someone open the door of the house next door. Mrs. Yu poked her head out. When she saw them, she hurriedly said, "Are you looking for the Shao family? They are not around." The couple went out in a carriage early in the morning. When Song Dejiang heard this, he quickly turned around and asked her, "Do you know where they went?" Mrs. Yu shook her head. "I'm not sure about that. Is there something urgent? Leave your name. When they come back, I'll help you tell them. My surname is Song. They'll know once you tell them. I do have something urgent to attend to. If they come back, please help me pass on the message." Mrs. Yu waved her hand. "It's no trouble at all." Song Dejiang thanked her again before wiping his sweat and hurriedly getting into the carriage. He glanced at the Shao family's gate and said to the coachman, "Let's go to the shop on Jinlan Street to take a look." The coachman quickly changed direction and went straight to 68, Jinlan Street. Unfortunately, when Song Dejiang stood in the shop, he only saw the busy Carpenter Pang and the other two. Carpenter Pang said that Shao Qingyuan and his wife had not come today. Song Dejiang was a little frustrated. When the coachman saw this, he quickly helped him up. "Master, we don't have time to look for them. If we don't go back, we might." Song Dejiang exhaled, and something in his eyes slowly became firm. He gritted his teeth and lowered the curtain of the carriage. He instructed the coachman, "Let's go back to the residence. At most, I'll apologize to them when they come back." The coachman nodded and drove the carriage even faster. Soon, they returned to the Song family. At this moment, Shao Qingyuan and Jiyu Yundong had no idea that Song Dejiang was looking for them anxiously. They had already followed Madame Ge to the door of Marquis Huayan's family. Jiyu Yundong glanced at the door, turned around, and said to Shao Qingyuan, who was sitting in the carriage, "I'll go in first." "Okay, be careful. If you see anything wrong, come out." Jiyu Yundong laughed. "I'm just going to admire the flowers. Why do you make it seem like I'm going to the battlefield?" "Don't worry, I'll take good care of myself." Shao Qingyuan held her hand. "I'll wait for you outside." After Jiyu Yundong got off the carriage, Shao Qingyuan nodded at Madame Ge. "Sorry to trouble you." It was not until Madame Ge led Jiyu Yundong and Anning into the residence that Shao Qingyuan sat back in the carriage. This was the main gate of the Marquis mansion, so it was not appropriate for the carriage to stop here and wait. Shao Qingyuan looked around and realized that there were also some official residences near the Marquis mansion. There were no large tea houses or restaurants, but there was a tea shop at the entrance of an alley further away. Shao Qingyuan asked Shao when to pull the carriage away and sat down in the shop. Jiyu Yundong followed Madame Ge through the door and quietly looked up to assess the scenery in the Marquis mansion. As expected of the once prosperous Marquis Huayan's mansion, The mansion was even larger than the one the emperor had bestowed to Qin Wenzheng. Even though the current Marquis mansion was far inferior to the past, the scenery was still spectacular. The servant led them through the weeping flower door. Immediately, a person welcomed them with a smile. "Mrs. Qin, you're finally here. I was just saying that I should take a look at the door. Come, come, come. This way." As she spoke, she looked down at Qin Anning and said, "You must be Anning. You're so pretty and smart." Anning obediently paid her respects. Only then did Jiyu Yundong know that this was the wife of the heir of Marquis Huayin. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1375, Jiyu Yundong is inconspicuous. The heir's wife smiled and stood up. She looked at Jiyu Yundong with a puzzled expression. This is my niece. Her husband's surname is Shao. She heard that the plum blossoms in the Marquis mansion are a scene in our capital and insisted on coming over to take a look. I brought her here to meet her. I hope you won't take offense." Although Madame Ji was only a few years older than Jiyu Yundong, Qin Anning addressed Jiyu Yundong as elder sister, and Jiyu Yunshu was Qin Wenzheng's disciple, so the seniority could only be calculated like this. "Of course I welcome you. I like people. My husband's surname is Shao. Who knows, we might have been a family 500 years ago." Jiyu Yundong pursed her lips and smiled meaningfully. Wasn't that so? She had come exactly because they might be a family. She followed suit and bowed. Then, the heir's wife led them inside. Before they got close, Jiyu Yundong saw a rose-red scenery in the distance. It was really beautiful, like a paradise. It was indeed a scene in the capital. The plum blossom forest in the Marquis Huayan's mansion was indeed beautiful. Jiyu Yundong could not help but hold her breath. Even Madame Ji was a little surprised. Seeing them like this, the heiress couldn't help but purse her lips and smile. "Let's go. Standing far away now is the best. Being in the plum forest is another feeling." "That's right." The few of them continued walking. Soon, they heard low voices and laughter. It seemed that there were already many madams and young ladies in the plum forest. When they saw Madame Ji coming over, a few people immediately stood up to welcome her. After all, he was a popular person in front of the emperor. Even though there were many aristocratic families with statuses higher than Qin Wenzheng, they still smiled at Madame Ji and did not dare to underestimate her. Jiyu Yundong held Qin Anning's hand and stood quietly at the side. She listened to Madame Ji introduce her and then nodded slightly in greeting. However, there were too many people. Not long after, the smile on Jiyu Yundong's face could not hold on any longer. She was not the only one. Anning, who was beside her, could not help but shake Jiyu Yundong's hand a few times. After finally walking to the pavilion and sitting down, the heir's wife finally said, "Anning, do you want to go over there to play? The little girls are all over there. Do you want to join in the fun?" Actually, Qin Anning did not want to go. She felt that they were not on the same side. However, she was even more unwilling to stay here. Her mother and these madams and young ladies would definitely talk for a long time. She was too bored. In any case, it was fine as long as she left this place. She did not have to play with those people. Therefore, she nodded and looked at Madame Ji. Madame Ji glanced at Jiyu Yundong. She knew that she had a motive for entering the Marquis mansion. She could not sit here with her all the time. Hence, she said to Jiyu Yundong, "Yundong, help me keep an eye on her. She'll listen to you. Don't let her go wild." "All right." Jiyu Yundong nodded obediently and bade farewell to the other madams and ladies. She then held Qin Anning's hand and left. In the eyes of many madams, Jiyu Yundong was not eye-catching. This married woman was probably just using Qin Wenzheng to see the world. Without her around, these people felt more at ease. The maidservant quickly led Jiyu Yundong and Qin Anning to the other side of the forest. When they were almost there, Jiyu Yundong saw 7 or 8 young girls laughing and playing. They were probably all under the age of 10. Qin Anning was not willing to go over. She stood where she was and spoke to Jiyu Yundong. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Ads by Pubrev Chapter 1376. The apology isn't pure however, the girls on the other side saw them. The people who were playing looked at each other. Not long after, two ladies of the same age as Anning ran over and stood in front of Qin Anning, inviting her. Anning, are you coming with us to play? Qin Anning did not. She did not like these people. They liked to compare at such a young age. It was either that their parents doted on them or that they had learned the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. They were praised and rewarded. They even asked her if she was very knowledgeable. After all, her father was a young genius and had caused a sensation back then. Later on, when they found out that Anning was not as good as them, they all looked at her in a strange way. It was as if she had embarrassed her father just because she was not a talented girl. Therefore, the last time they met, they parted on bad terms. Qin Anning did not expect them to come looking for her again. Frowning, she shook her head and said, "I'm not going. I want to accompany my sister Jiyu." The two girls looked up at Jiyu Yundong curiously. Then, they turned around to look at the other little girls and quickly said, "Anning, come with us. It was our fault last time. When we went back, we were scolded by our parents. We know our mistake and won't do it again." Startled, Qin Anning's heart softened at the sight of how guilty they looked. The young lady was not a calculative person to begin with. Since they had already apologized, it would be rude of her to continue harping on it. She immediately pursed her lips and said softly, then I'll forgive you." Then, she looked up at Jiyu Yundong. Jiyu Yundong laughed. "You can go if you want. I'll be here admiring the flowers myself. Just call me if you need anything." Jiyu Yundong and Qin Anning had different thoughts. She knew that these people would condescend to come over and invite Anning because of her father. They said that they had been scolded by their parents last time. She guessed that their parents had asked them to build a good relationship with the young lady of the Qin family. The apology was not pure, and they did not really realize that they were wrong. But what did it matter? Anning was young. Deep down, she longed to play with other children. If she was restrained, Anning would never know the true thoughts of these young ladies in the capital. As Qin Wenzheng's daughter, the people she would come into contact with in the future were these people. She could not avoid them. Jiyu Yundong just watched from the side. Qin Anning quickly followed the two young ladies to their small circle. Jiyu Yundong had sharp eyes and noticed that there seemed to be a young lady in the center of them, who looked even younger than Anning. Thinking about it, this young lady was also a person of noble status. When Jiyu Yundong saw that they were speaking quickly, she separated her attention and sized up the people around her. Most of the people in this area were the maidservants of those girls. They basically stood far away. Some were alone, and some were gathered together to talk. The rest were the old maids in the Marquis mansion. Jiyu Yundong's target was these people. She saw an old woman picking up the plum blossom branches that had been torn off the ground. She was probably afraid that the young masters here would accidentally step on them and fall. Jiyu Yundong narrowed her eyes and quietly reached into her sleeve. She took out the silver bracelet from her space and put it on her wrist. This silver bracelet was specially made after she heard the news from Liangzi in the Wanqing prefecture. If the Marquis mansion was really Shao Qingyuan's house, then the elders of the Marquis mansion should have seen this bracelet. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1377, Jiyu Yundong's little trick. Jiyu Yundong wore the bracelet and specially walked to the old woman's side. She bent down and picked up one of the broken branches. The hand with the silver bracelet stretched out in front of the old man. "For you." The old woman was stunned. She followed the bracelet's hand and looked up. Then, she was shocked and said in fear, "I don't dare to trouble madam. I can do it." Jiyu Yundong stretched the bracelet in front of her again. "I'm fine. It's just a matter of convenience. Madam, just enjoy the flowers and tea. There are snacks in the pavilion over there. If you need anything else, feel free to tell me." Jiyu Yundong nodded. "All right, I understand. Thank you. After saying that, she turned around and wanted to leave, but the bracelet slid down her wrist and fell to the ground. Seeing this, the old woman hurriedly picked up the bracelet and handed it to Jiyu Yundong. Madam, this is your bracelet. Jiyu Yundong turned around. Why did it fall off again? The buttons don't seem to be reliable anymore. I have to get someone to repair it later. As she spoke, she reached out to take the silver bracelet. The old woman took a few more glances at the bracelet. Jiyu Yundong's eyes lit up and he asked, "Have you seen this bracelet before?" "Huh." The old woman was stunned for a moment before shaking her head. "I've never seen it before. I just think this bracelet is quite unique." Jiyu Yundong was speechless. The corners of her mouth twitched. It was indeed quite unique. Jiyu Yundong was a little disappointed that this old woman had never seen it before. The old woman left quickly. Jiyu Yundong put the silver bracelet back on her wrist. Unexpectedly, when she looked up, she saw a group of maidservants not far away pointing at her. Jiyu Yundong narrowed her eyes and looked at them coldly. Immediately, two maids did not dare to make a sound, but two of them looked at Jiyu Yundong provocatively. Jiyu Yundong frowned when she suddenly heard Qin Anning's angry voice. "Sister Jiyu is not a servant of our family. Sister Jiyu is very capable. You're not allowed to speak ill of her." Jiyu Yundong looked over and saw that Qin Anning's face had indeed turned red. She pushed one of the young ladies unhappily. That little girl was the one who seemed to have a noble status. As expected, as soon as Anning pushed, one of the maids who had provoked Jiyu Yundong just now ran over quickly. "Princess." She hugged the little girl and reached out to push Anning. Jiyu Yundong's pupils constricted. An adult's strength was different from a child's. Anning pushed the little girl and only made her retreat. This maidservant pushed Anning and was about to make her fall. Jiyu Yundong suddenly rushed forward and quickly supported Anning before she reached the end. She frowned at the maidservant. However, the maidservant looked at her young master tightly. "Little princess, are you all right? Are you injured?" After saying that, she looked up at Anning. "What's wrong with you? If you want to talk, just talk. What right do you have to hit her? If our little princess is injured, can you bear the responsibility?" Anning pursed her lips. After a moment of silence, she said, "It's my fault for pushing her. I apologize, but it's also wrong for her to hurt someone with her words. She has to apologize too." The servant girl was so angry that she laughed. "Our little princess." Before she could finish speaking, the little girl in her arms stopped her. The young princess pushed the servant girl away and raised her chin arrogantly. "I didn't say anything wrong. Why should I apologize? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1378, Jiyu Yundong is a country bumpkin. The young princess raised her head and looked at Jiyu Yundong again. Her eyes were filled with contempt. "How powerful can a country woman like her be? She can't even compare to my maidservant. I don't know what Mrs. Qin is thinking. She actually brought such a bumpkin into the Marquis mansion. How embarrassing." "You." Qin Anning stomped her feet in anger. "She's not a bumpkin." "How is she not a bumpkin?" Another young lady chimed in. "Didn't you say just now? Her family is in that village. You even said that she brought you to the mountains and fields to catch cicadas with you. You even ate cicadas. Hey, just thinking about it makes me feel disgusted. You also said that her younger brother didn't have the money to go to school in the past. Later, he finally started to learn with your father. I didn't mean that." Qin Anning looked at Jiyu Yundong anxiously. Yes, she was the one who said those words. However, she just wanted to tell these people that Sister Jiyu treated her very well and played with her. There were many interesting things in the village. It was clearly these people who asked her about her previous life in Fengkai County. Why did they say that Sister Jiyu was a bumpkin? Also, she just wanted to tell them that Yunshu was very good at studying. He had only been in her father's school for a year, but he had already surpassed most of the students. He would be the top scholar in the future. These people deliberately misinterpreted her meaning. The young lady looked at Jiyu Yundong anxiously. She did not want her to misunderstand her. She did not want Sister Jiyu to hate her. Jiyu Yundong lowered her eyes and patted her head. She smiled and said, I know. Don't be anxious. Anning's personality was a little like Madame Jez. Madame Ge was not good at arguing with others. Actually, this also meant that the mother and daughter were protected too well by Qin Wenzheng. Seeing that Jiyu Yundong did not misunderstand, Anning heaved a sigh of relief. When she looked up again, she faced the girls with her head held high. When the young princess saw this, she was immediately indignant. Especially a country bumpkin like Jiyu Yundong. She did not even look at her when she ran over, as if she looked down on her. She was extremely displeased. Pointing at Jiyu Yundong, she said, Qin Anning even said that you're amazing. Do you know how to play the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting? How many books have you read? Do you know how to write poems and settle accounts? Jiyu Yundong raised her eyebrows. They thought these were impressive. Jiyu Yundong smiled. For some reason, the young princess in front of her felt a little terrified when she saw her smile. She was about to continue pressing when she heard Jiyu Yundong's cold voice. You're asking me this? It means that you know everything, right? The young princess snorted. Of course. I've been studying since I was 3 years old. I know the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. I also know how to memorize poems and calculate accounts. I've also read a lot of books. She was 6 years old this year and had studied for 3 years. She thought that her results were not bad. After all, even the headmaster praised her for being smart. Jiyu Yundong nodded slightly. You've read a lot of books. She seized this point and asked, if that's the case, do you know the most basic knowledge? Of course, of course. The young princess felt an inexplicable panic. However, she was a dignified princess. How could she be afraid of a bumpkin? Then let me ask you a few questions. Jiyu Yundong raised her eyebrows and smiled. Just ask. Would she be stumped by an uneducated bumpkin? What a joke. The other children also looked arrogant, but a few older girls frowned slightly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1379, Jiyu Yundong's sharp questions. Jiyu Yundong thought that since they were so eager, she would not stand on ceremony. Okay, then let me ask you. Why do horses sleep standing up? Why is it usually sunny in the morning when there's dew? Why is it colder when snow melts than when it falls? Why can't the oil that's on fire be put out with water? The young princess widened her eyes. She did not know. But before she could answer, Jiyu Yundong's next questions followed. When you hit a snake, you hit its weak spot. Where does the weak spot refer to? What is the most precious thing in the bird's nest? What's the use of a cat's whisker? What kind of plants bloom first and then grow leaves? As soon as Jiyu Yundong finished speaking, there was silence. Everyone looked at her blankly. These questions were different from what they had imagined. None of them knew. The young princess was so anxious that she started to sweat. Her teacher had never taught her before, and there was no such thing in the books. How could she answer? She could only turn her head quietly and look at the maid behind her. The maidservant naturally did not know, but she did not want to show her ignorance in front of the young princess, so she immediately targeted Jiyu Yundong. The maidservant sneered and said, "You're quite nimble with your questions. Who can't ask these questions? But do you know the answers? You probably don't know and are specially using them to scare people, right?" The other maidservants immediately echoed, "That's right, that's right. Do you know the answers? Why should you ask someone else for an answers you don't even know?" The older ones also nodded. "You must have asked randomly." No, she did not. Qin Anning immediately defended Jiyu Yundong and retorted, "My sister Jiyu definitely knows. She's very powerful." When the young princess heard the support of the people around her, her guilty conscience immediately disappeared. She also looked at Jiyu Yundong. "Tell me the answers if you have the ability." "Okay." Jiyu Yundong raised her eyebrows and smiled. Firstly, a horse has a big body and doesn't have sharp teeth or claws. If it lies down to sleep, once a ferocious beast attacks, it will be too late to defend or escape. Therefore, a horse has developed the habit of sleeping standing up to protect itself. Second, on a clear and cloudless night, the heat on the ground will dissipate quickly. The temperature in the field will decrease rapidly, and the ability to contain water vapor in the air will weaken. This way, the water vapor will condense on the grass, leaves, or rocks. Therefore, it's usually sunny in the morning when there's dew. 3. When the snow stops and the sky clears, there will be no clouds in the sky to block sunlight. The snow will begin to melt under the sunlight and absorb heat, so it will be colder when the snow melts. Fourth, oil is lighter than water. When it burns, if you pour water into it, the water will immediately sink to the bottom of the oil. The oil will float up and flow out of the pot. Of course, the fire will burn brighter and brighter. It's best to immediately cover the pot to extinguish the oil pot fire. After Jiyu Yundong finished speaking, she looked at the girls in front of her who were blinking in shock. She suddenly felt that she was bullying them. She spoke faster. The 7 inches of a snake is the heart. The most precious bird's nest is the blood swallow. A cat's whisker is used to detect the width of the road. Plants like winter plums, white jasper, and elm plums bloom first before growing leaves. Buying the shell and returning the pearl is a metaphor for people who only pay attention to the appearance of things and not their substance. She said the last sentence very meaningfully. As expected, the 2 older girls instantly understood what she meant and felt a little ashamed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible.